decided not to. Welcome to the Call to Cinema. I am Aaron, and I have with me Jamie Blanks, director of Storm Warning, Urban Legend. Oh my God, so much stuff. Valentine, which is my personal favorite slasher. And we got Mike Thorn here, who has done some amazing horror stuff. He's the new voice of horror. And if you have not heard his stuff, if you've not read his stuff, you really need to. We're going to be talking about some of it tonight. We're going to be talking about a lot of it tonight. Actually, The Darkest Hours is getting re-released with, and it's amazing. So we're going to talk about that tonight. We're going to talk about a lot of stuff tonight. Anyway, I'm going to let you guys speak first. You guys can introduce yourselves better than I can, because I can just I'll be an that type of thing, and you guys can start. So go for it.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm so excited to be here. Mike and I actually met this year on Twitter. I can't remember what our first interaction was, Mike, how we first got the ball rolling, but we became friends very quickly. And I started reading a lot of Mike's fiction, and it blew me away. I'd just come off reading I've been on a H.P. Lovecraft bender for a while. I've been reading this big compilation of Lovecraft and loving that. And I was just so blown away with Mike's work. It felt like a really contemporary kind of reimagining of the kind of Lovecraft cosmic horror. He's got some fabulous short stories, and he's written a book that I'm sort of halfway through at the moment, Shelter of the Damned. And I was just really blown away with Mike's stuff, and we just connected on a personal level. We worked together on a little development project for something that I was working on at the time, and we just decided we really liked working with each other, and we just gelled. I mean, how did it feel for you, Mike, when we sort of connected? It just felt really easy for me straight away.
Absolutely. I mean, initially when you reached out, I was just like, I was kind of overwhelmed because I've been a fan of your work for a long time. I think I sent you a picture where I was wearing my Urban Legend t-shirt.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I'm just a Jamie Blanks fan. So,
that's so sweet. Thank you.
Sincerely. Yeah. So to, connect with you was just such an honor and so exciting. But yeah, Jamie's right. I mean, we just connected immediately, I think, over this deep affection and love for the genre and respect for the genre. Mm. And I've always loved the way Jamie incorporates this legacy of genre into his work while also taking it in really exciting new directions. And that's, the case in all of his films. I think my personal favorites are probably Storm Warning and Urban Legend, but they're all terrific. Amazing body of work.
Yeah, I mean, I get the sense from your writing, it's the same thing too. There is just a real deep understanding and love of genre, and you can kind of feel the echoes of these things in the different works. And I think that's kind of what, when we started working together, really got a full, deep sort of understanding of your genre knowledge. I mean, you're not just a great author of fiction, you've done some serious film criticism and stuff. And I'm just amazed that you did some liner notes for my Storm Warning album recently, and just not just the references to other movies, but the references to other musical works and stuff that you're able to tap into. You've obviously got a really deep frame of reference for this stuff, and I've, like Aaron, I've been immersed and obsessed with genre stuff all my life, and that's always seeped into my work, particularly my first film, where it was like it might be the only film I ever make. So let's get all that stuff out that I want to do, and it's just sort of something that I've continued to do. Just trying not to rip off other directors, but trying to just incorporate stylistic elements from other genres like giallos and things into Valentine, and trying to tap into a little bit of the Australian Gothic kind of heritage when we did Storm Warning. I got the same sense from you that you had that deep genre, just frame of reference that was, it's just so important, when you're working with one another, you have a shorthand, and we have the same kind of touch points, and we can refer to the same kind of things and immediately know what we're trying to achieve with something. And you don't always get that with a collaborator. You don't always have that sort of immediate connection. And I just thought, Mike and I worked so well on this little project we did together. We've got to do some other stuff. So fortunately, Mike has lots and lots and lots of fiction already, and we're planning on developing some original stuff too. So I'm really excited about that. And it's a lot of good things came out of being on Twitter this year, and meeting Mike was one of the best things of the entire year for me.
Oh, thank you so much. Definitely mutual feeling there. Yeah. Yeah, it was just such a natural kind of immediate rapport that we had. Just it was such an instinctive, and for me, such a kinetic process working with Jamie. Like his energy for this project we were working on was so infectious, and the way we bounced ideas back and forth just felt really organic.
I remember not being able to sleep some nights, Mike, and lying in bed and then grabbing the phone. I just had an idea, and we would spend the next 45 minutes texting back and forth. And by the time I woke up, Mike had written it up, and it was great. And that's how a collaboration should be, and it should be kinetic and exciting and inspired
and fun, right?
Exactly. And it's all got to be fun. That's one of the mantras I keep having on when I'm making a film. Look, it's so hard to make a movie. When you actually get to the point of making it, have some fun while you're doing it. It should be a fun experience. We all work so hard to get to the point where we're making that movie. So many, shoots are miserable and people aren't happy, and I don't like any of that stuff to happen on my films. I want to have a happy set. I want people to be enjoying themselves, and it's also something for me. I've always wanted the writer present. I know a lot of the directors want to sort of shunt the writer aside, but when I first started working with Silvio on Urban Legend, we worked together so well. We would be in the hotel room working, on these things, and then next day, kind of like showing the studio what we'd done and getting notes, and it was all very organic and fun and kind of just flowed really well. So when it came time to shoot that film, I said, look, I really want Silvio present for that movie. And he was there for a good chunk of it while we got the film set up. And he was even able to be there with me when we'd be on little location tours looking for places to shoot. I remember once I broke off from the group because I needed to find a bathroom and stumbled into this amazing new modern building at the campus. And it was the location we decided to shoot the radio station with Tari. And I just found that by stumbling onto it. And I grabbed Silvio and said, what if we use this location? And all of a sudden that night he's writing it up, and we used the stairs, and we found all these different just things that we could do in that location that weren't in the original script and weren't kind of what we were scouting for, but just because we found this great space, he was able to quickly adapt it, and that's how that whole sequence came together. And that wouldn't have happened if the writer hadn't been present on set. We would have, I don't know how we would have gone about doing it, but it was really important to me that I had Silvio there, because he was the one guy that knew the film as well as I did. And that was always the case on Valentine. I wanted Gretchen and Aaron there as much as possible because I'd have such a good collaboration with them. And then when it came time to do the two films with Everett DeRoche, I made sure he was there every day on Storm Warning. He was able to drive to that location every day. But when we did Long Weekend, we were a long way out. We're at the bottom of Victoria, the lowest point on the Australian mainland. It's like a 4-hour drive from wherever it was. So I had in the budget that we were going to put Everett up. We got him a house, and I made sure Everett was there every single day because I like to have my writer nearby. So I'm not one of those directors who's just like, thanks for the script, see you later. I like to collaborate very much with my writers, just as much as you're collaborating with everybody else on the movie. I think the writer's job isn't done once the script's turned in. Like they need to be present while the film's getting made, out of fairness to them, as much as I want to work with that person throughout that journey. So I've always done that on all my films, and I really love collaborating with people. And I'm not a writer myself. Like, I love working with writers, and I do enough on the movie. I don't need to be the guy that writes it as well. I like to work with so I can see Mike and I working together very well in that capacity down the road as we develop some projects together.
Definitely. Yeah, we've been batting a few ideas back and forth, so I'm excited.
Yeah, no, it's going to be really fun.
Or as a third person, like coming in and looking at your stuff and seeing what Jamie's done and reading what you've written, Mike, I can picture it. Like, I can see, like when I first heard about you was from Jamie, and then I got to read some of your stuff, and I'm like, okay, how's it going to work? And I'm like, oh, that's how it works. It's like a perfect, it's a perfect connection. It's a perfect collaboration. Two minds that I think are way, that are in sync for this stuff.
Mike writes very cinematically. I mean, there's a lot of internal stuff that going on in the characters' minds that you do beautifully, but there is a kind of a cinematic quality to your stuff. All the things that I've read, you describe things very visually, and I think it lends itself. That writing lends itself to film, and I'm interested. Is that something that just organically comes out of the way you write, or is it something because you've got such a good background with film analysis as well? Is that something consciously that you're doing?
I think it's probably relatively subconscious, but it's definitely as a result of just growing up being a huge cinephile. Like when I was in high school, initially I wanted to go into acting, but I had always written fiction and also some bad poetry along the way. So I was always kind of interested in both. But I worked at Blockbuster Video for a period in my teens, RIP Blockbuster, and we used to get 10 free rentals a week. So that was like, that was exciting for me, was to bring home this stack of videos, and I would just explore all genres. So I think just the amount of visual content that I've absorbed just shows up into my fiction. And I'm as inspired by, you know, Carpenter and Cronenberg and Romero and Craven and all of those folks as I am by Lovecraft and Poe and King. It's all kind of, you just take it all in, you know?
It comes through in your work. It's funny, I work in a video store too. It was one of the happiest jobs I ever had in my life.
The best.
Used to smuggle my VCR into the video store, and I would just like be dubbing all the new movies as they came out. So I had a collection of everything that was in the store. They'd say, "Have you got Friday the 13th Part 6? Oh, it's not available. It's rented at the moment. It should be available in about 95 minutes or something." Yeah, no, it was a great job. I used to love that. No, it's so interesting with horror. You do have so many different ways of expressing yourself in different mediums. I mean, you know, they're reading great stuff by Stephen King and reading your stuff, Mike. You're able to do things in literature that you just can't do so easily in cinema, like the internal stuff particularly. I'm always interested when I find ways directors get around that side of it, an adaptation, where they're able to find other ways of conveying that inner life of the characters. And there's some stuff you can obviously do in cinema that you can't do in a novel. But it's just, I always find it so interesting the way that you're able to express horror in these different mediums and play to the strengths of each of those mediums. You know, it's I remember when I was a kid, one of the things that scared me the most, I think I've got it here somewhere. I don't know if you guys ever listened to this. This was a huge album back in the 70s. Did you ever hear this one?
Is that the Wells version? No,
War
it's
of the
not.
Worlds. This is the Jeff Wayne musical version of War of the Worlds.
Cool.
So it's audio only. It's Richard Burton doing the narration. Fantastic score by Jeff Wayne. And I used to listen to that as a kid. You know, it had a little booklet with some artwork that helped kind of paint the scene, but it's set in Victorian England, and it's a really kind of faithful adaptation of the Wells story. It's sort of in compressed musical form, but it scared the fucking shit out of me. It used to give me nightmares. And it's because there was just enough information planted with the narration from Burton and stuff that you could just imagine this story going on. And it was in a lot of ways far more terrifying than in any of the movies I'd seen, because it did rely so much on your own imagination to pull it all together. And I think that's sometimes where horror fiction has got it all over the movies, is you're able to exploit the reader's imagination in a much more vivid way. In a film, you're showing them something, and they're reacting to what you're showing them. In a novel, you're planting all these seeds and you're creating the kind of world for them, but you're forcing them to imagine it for themselves. You know, I remember reading some of your fiction, and I'm already imagining the new kind of drug, the farmhouse, and where that is, and I'm mapping out the geography of where everything is as you read it, and that's something you don't get in a film. And I just always think that's such a great advantage of that literary medium is the use of someone's own imagination to scare, you know, to create the scariest elements of the story, you know.
Yeah, that's part of what's been tricky and interesting and really exciting and fun about looking at, okay, how could I adapt something like this to screen? So I'm kind of working on a treatment of Shelter for the Damned for screen, and I'm realizing as I'm combing through, okay, you have to convey a lot of this interiority visually. It really is a different form entirely. Yeah, and it gets me thinking too, to you as someone who both directs and composes and edits. Like when you're composing music for your films, what does that process look like? Because when I was writing the liner notes for the Storm Warning soundtrack, I was thinking back to this quote from John Carpenter where he said he wants music to be like carpet for the audience to walk on. Like, how do you find that synthesis between
I
images.
always responded to that style of music. I mean, there's sort of two extremes of film scoring. You've got the Carpenter minimalist approach, which is highly effective, and then you've got sometimes maybe like the John Williams Raiders approach, where every moment in the action is scored. There's a flourish for this. The guy comes out with the whip. All those moments are scored. It's kind of like it's full on. And Jerry Goldsmith used to do that stuff really well as well. But I always responded to the Carpenter stuff more because he's more about setting up an atmosphere and a mood straight away with the thing. He's kind of telling you that music's telling you how to react to those images. He's not reacting so much to he obviously has to hit a few key beats here and there, but mostly it's about creating atmosphere. And I took that approach when I scored some of my student films. I ended up scoring films for most of my class. So I think over 3 years, I must have scored close to 60 student films, all in different styles. So it was really fun to do that because I got to experiment with all sorts of different approaches on scoring. Someone had a quirky little thing and it would be all plucked strings and oboes or whatever. Other times it'd be a science fiction film. It'd be a completely different approach. So with Storm Warning, I had so much time to score it because there was about 800, 900 shots that had to be digitally augmented, like either adding rain or painting things out or whatever it was. Bringing life to this little wallaby that was a motion-controlled puppet. We had to make that look like it was breathing and things. So there was a lot of sort of painstaking work had to be done on the visual effects. So it gave me all this time to score it. I ended up scoring it close to 3 times. I went through the whole film from beginning to end, did a pass on it, wasn't so crazy about that. Did another pass where I stripped it back a bit more. Was getting closer. I think maybe a couple of those cues, well, parts of those cues maybe survived the third iteration, which is the final score, which is much more ominous and brooding, and stripped back a little bit. Like I did obviously have to hit a few key moments in the action, but generally it's atmosphere, and it's like I wanted it almost to be like the musical storm that's building in that movie, and you hearing on the soundtrack, you can hear all the things that are going on, but in the movie, it kind of disappears into the background with the rumbling of the storm. You don't know, is that sound design? Is it music? It's quite ambiguous in terms of how you perceive it in the film. So yeah, that was that. I just kind of adopted that approach where it was just like, keep it minimal. Don't let the film, don't let the music overwhelm the movie until you want it to, until the end when all bets are off and things are going crazy when she's building the traps and she's taking them out. That's when I gave myself permission to like come up front in the mix a little bit more and not hide back in the rear speakers so much. And so yeah, that was the approach I took on Storm Warning, and I've scored quite a few films since then, and you learn tricks along the way. I mean, it's just so wonderful now to have everything on a computer where everything's locked to picture. I mean, the old days, these Richard Einhorn, the Prowler score, I was reading the liner notes for that. He literally had to, like, as they all did, find the tempo, figure out what beats per minute they are. Then he'd write, like, on the third, downbeat of bar 16, a pitchfork goes through the girl, hit that with a flourish, and then that would all be transcribed, and you'd have to just hope when you played the score back, all those moments kind of hit where they're supposed to hit. Now we can do everything completely locked to the frame of a picture. We can change tempo if we need to sort of, change where we land on a downbeat. All those kind of things are so easy to do on a computer now. And, even when the early Carpenter Howard scores, they didn't have that frame lock thing. They had to kind of work in a similar way. They'd lay down a beat track and figure out timings. Okay, we have to hit this moment on this part. So, technology's evolved a lot, and it's made the process a hell of a lot easier. And just the amount of sounds you can bring into a score now. You can have orchestral sounds, but also organic sound sources that you can twist and warp and make into all things that you've never heard before. So I really enjoy that part of it. It's a hugely creative part of making the film. Sorry.
No problem. It looked like Aaron might have been about to say something.
I was just taking everything in, man. When it comes to the process, when you're directing, editing, like scoring, what's your favorite part? Like if you had to choose one, I know it might be hard.
It is hard. I've always loved editing because that's really where you're bringing, you've done all the hard work at that point. That's when you're making the movie. And for me on my 2 Australian films, the editing and scoring were kind of intimate. Like, you only when you're the editor and the composer, that's the only time when the composer can say to the editor, "Hey, it'd be really handy if this cut happened over here for the music, because I really want that music to kind of do this." So you can actually go back and tweak it. Normally, obviously you're working to locked picture, and you have to keep everything. You have to score what you're given. But in terms of my favorite part, I don't know. The directing side of it's definitely the most most collaborative and sort of engaging side of things, because you're working with so many people every day, and you've got to answer so many questions every day about all sorts of things. The fact that you're shooting out of order, it's like take your script, throw it up in the air, and pick a random page. All right, now give context for this page to the actors, the cinematographer, everybody else. We haven't shot any of the stuff either side of it yet, but it's your job to give full context on how you're going to make that, how that scene's going to plug into the movie. And it's got to be seamless, because once you put that first assembly together, no one's going to give a shit about the fact that you shot the movie out of order. All directors have to do that. It just has to work. So that the directing side of it's definitely the most kind of like edgiest seat, full-on engaging side of things. I really do enjoy the composing side, because I don't have to just discuss anything with anybody. I don't have to answer any questions. I can just kind of get lost in my own process for as long as it takes. I'll often be working on stuff. I'll look at the time and it's like 4:30 in the morning, and it would have started at maybe midday that day, and the time's just gone like that because you're just so into what you're doing and you just lose all track of time. So I don't know that I have a favorite part. I love all the things for their own. They've all got their own joys about it. They've all got their own satisfaction. They're different. Probably editing these days is my least favorite because I've done so much of it over the years, and I still do a lot of editing for all sorts of clients and things, and it gets to be a bit of a grind. And I'm sort of the belief directors shouldn't really edit their own movies, having now done 2 of them myself. I collaborated with one editor on Stormy. You're not always the best person to make those edit decisions, even though I know I'm a good editor and I've cut like documentaries and things. The director's not always the best person to be the judge of whether a shot belongs in the film. It's like, yeah, it's a beautiful crane shot. Yeah, I know we took 8 hours to set that up and get it, but is it helping the story, or are you just hanging on to that shot because you like the shot? And that's where a good editor can come in and just make those hard decisions for you. And, and I've worked with 2 fabulous editors on my first 2 films, Jay Cassidy and Steve Merkovich. And, I don't know that I'd ever want to put my editing skills up against those 2 guys. They're sort of on a different level. So my future films, I'll probably not be editing them. I'll probably turn that over to the professionals. I've done that now, but I definitely intend to keep scoring films if I can, if the schedule allows it.
Like, how have you found writing, taking advice and what you've done so far? Because for such a young author, you've got such a distinguished, such a definite voice in your literature. It really comes through from short story to novel. It rings through. How have you found that going from writing a short story to a novel to going to writing a script, a screenplay?
That's a very good question. I think I sort of did things backwards, because the first really serious piece of writing I did as an adult was Shelter for the Damned. Originally, it looked a lot different than it does now. I kind of reworked it for an experimental fiction course I was taking, and that was my capstone assignment. It was basically like an epic prose poem, so I didn't use conventional punctuation at all. It was like a 200-page prose poem, and thankfully a good writing mentor I had at the time, he kind of pressed me on why I made those decisions. And I said, well, I really like Hubert Selby Jr., who's this American writer who's heavily influenced by James Joyce. And ultimately he kind of said, maybe you should try writing it in a more conventional, AKA readable style. So that novel in itself was a massive learning experience for me, because every chapter is kind of a part of a bigger whole. So when I went to short fiction, which I ended up doing a lot during my master's degree, I found that somewhat easier in some sense. A novel is just more to grapple with. It's a larger project. You're dealing with more characters, a wider span of time. I think a short story, if it works, you are fully exploring one concept or one arc to its potential. And then in terms of looking at something for screen, yeah, it's fascinating because you're visualizing something as you would with fiction. And maybe because of my background and interest in cinema, I do think in terms of staging and cutting a little bit, and even lighting to some extent. So I just try to put my cinema enthusiast mind to work when I'm writing a treatment. But it's very different. I mean, working on Shelter for the Damned, that book is very internal, very interior. So I'm trying to find ways to convey to the viewer what it is that Mark and the other characters are experiencing and going through.
Does that involve writing new scenes or reimagining existing scenes in another form?
Yeah. I'm reimagining. Right now, I'm thinking through some visual cues to give the audience a hint of Mark's background and propensity to violence. And I'm thinking I'm definitely going to be removing some scenes too, because without the interior monologue or interior dialogue of those scenes, they don't function the same way. I might well be writing some new scenes too. But it's a really interesting practice.
Because there's a couple of flashback sequences that are kind of really important to establish his propensity for violence and things like that. The flashback idea is actually not a bad thing to keep working with, because you're able to get the film on the road and then fill in backstory as you go, rather than having to do all this setup and then finally get to the meat of the situation. So it's interesting, isn't it? There's all different ways you can use that narrative structure, whether you take it in a non-linear fashion or you're flashing back to earlier events. I guess there's all sorts of different ways you have to solve those problems, the literary problems that, as they say, you can't put a book through a projector, so you've got to figure out the translation.
Exactly. Yeah, I think I might actually go back to the 1989 Pet Sematary again, because I think Stephen King did a great job adapting his work for screen there, as he does many times. Again, that's a very interior novel when you think about Lewis Reed's arc, right?
That is, and it's a brilliant piece of work by Mary Lambert too. That is a really
amazing. Yeah, amazing film.
Yeah, no, I'm very fond of that one. What are the? I'm seeing messages pop up. I'm just trying to see what people are saying. Do we have any questions, Aaron, that we need to answer?
Well, they're asked how many instruments you play.
I can play guitar, violin, drums, keyboards. Yeah.
I can play absolutely zero. Do you have any musical talent, Mike?
No, not at all. I took piano lessons briefly as a kid, but I couldn't focus. So unfortunately not. I wish I played an instrument, but
I tried to take piano lessons, but I'd already kind of sort of taught myself. I learned early John Carpenter scores. That's how actually I learned the piano. Learning to play Halloween and the Fog and things like that. Escape from New York was a really hard one to figure out, because they had all sorts of different chords that weren't so simple to follow. But I did try and take piano lessons, and it was pointless, because I'd already developed my own kind of way of playing and trying to unlearn things and learn another. It just my brain couldn't handle it and fizzed out. Just stay with what you're doing. But I did learn the guitar properly, so and then playing the violin, I had proper lessons on the violin. I haven't touched the violin in a long time though. Don't need to. I can just dial one up on the keyboards now. I'm lazy.
Was that an actual banjo that you incorporated into that?
Well, there was a sampled banjo and some banjo loops, and there was a few different things to make that up. Wanted it to give it a bit of a Deliverance flavor.
Yeah.
Just like, okay, we're just having fun at this stage now. All the build-ups happen. Let's just turn it loose. And I just thought, I'm about to put the guy through a hovercraft fan. How much more brooding is good.
Yeah, that final stretch of the film is just. I mean, yeah, the intensity builds. It is that kind of and you, when I was listening to the isolated score, you can hear that sonically too, the way it builds to this kind of eruption in the final act. So good.
Yeah, I had a ball doing that final cue. I must have spent days and days and days just layering and things and bringing things in and out. There's even a couple of samples from Mad Max in there. There's a couple of horn sound. They're just single notes.
Oh, cool.
They're just literally sampled directly from Mad Max and just threw into the score. Just a bit of a homage to Australian genre royalty.
That's cool.
Now,
so go ahead, Aaron.
question: I'm a big collector, movie collector. I can see a lot of movies behind you there, Jamie. I know you collect. Mike, do you collect as well, or?
I do, but my collection has dramatically been diminished over time. I was supposed to move to New York a couple years ago, and that didn't happen for various reasons. I still have a humble collection of Blu-rays, DVDs, and VHS, but not nearly as extensive as I used to. Because after I worked at Blockbuster, I worked at, one or both of you might remember, HMV.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I worked there too, and I got a really good discount. So from Blockbuster plus HMV, I stockpile. I probably used to have, close to 1,000 films. It's way, way, way fewer now, but I love the physical media.
I used to have a massive collection of VHS, and my wife insisted we turf them all out one day once we moved to DVD. And now I see some of the prices these things are going for. I'm like, I should have kept them. Not that I would have sold them. I just would like to have kept them. I've kept a few classics because there's quite a bit of stuff here. It goes.
Wow! Well, look at that library.
There's a bit of stuff here.
Oh man! Oh, looks like you might have frozen.
Did you freeze there, James? Jamie?
We lost him.
We'll pop back in there in a second, I think.
Okay.
But yeah, I got to say, there's a question there. Somebody asked, if you weren't working in horror, what genre would you like to work with? What would be your next?
We're back.
Oh, you're back.
It happened to my computer.
No problem. If I weren't to work in horror, what genre would I work in?
Like, what would you want to write? Like,
I think I'm open to writing anything. It just so happens that what comes out of me is horror. I don't even necessarily always think in terms of genre when I'm first drafting something. It's just where my creative impulses take me and where my imagination takes me. But I'd love to write in any genre. I think just like straight non-genre fiction could be interesting, just something character driven. Yeah, I think I'd be interested in anything, really.
Was it always horror from the start, Mike? That you that was where your first instincts took you. That was the first kind of stuff that you wrote that was published.
That's the first stuff that was published. But as a kid, I was really first excited by fantasy and science fiction, like Tolkien and C.S. Lewis and George Lucas, like so many other kids of many generations. And then as a young kid, I think I was about 12 when I read Pet Sematary. And that was a big holy shit moment for me. I was like, oh, fiction can do this. Fiction can be this. And that was a big moment. And I think I also saw The Exorcist and the film version of Pet Sematary around that time too.
Right.
And funnily enough, actually Bride of Chucky I saw when I was about 12 or 13. And that had a massive impact on me. Just the kind of irreverence and the anarchic energy of that film. I just loved the sensibility that Don Mancini brought to that thing. I kind of fell away from horror for a bit. Like during high school, I was really interested in more, I guess you could say, I was just like exploring a lot of international cinema and classic cinema. And that was where I was focused. And then I came back to horror in my early 20s and it was like, yes, I'm back home. It feels like home.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about you, Jamie? Was it always horror?
Yeah. I mean, I'd seen plenty of movies as a kid, but I got dragged on to see Carpenter's The Fog on 16mm at a movie night at Surf Lifesaving Club when I was a kid. And I was just blown away how terrifying, how scared I was, and loved it. And then I saw Halloween and the Amityville Horror on television later. And as soon as we got our VCR, that's just kind of like all I wanted to watch was horror and science fiction. And decided really early on that I wanted to make those movies. I think once I discovered in Starlog or Fangoria that you could actually get paid as a career to do this. It was always about what you're going to do when you grow up. But I like to do that. It looks like fun. So yeah, and that was always kind of horror for me. I did make some comedy shorts and things like that as a kid, and I do love comedy movies, and I would love to make one day. But I always find the horror genre allows you to do the most stylistically as a director. I think horror and science fiction, you have carte blanche to kind of just go bonkers visually if you want to. Most of those stylish movies are in those genres. I think thrillers and horror and science fiction. So I was always just most drawn to that, just in terms of wanting to be a director, because I just noticed so much beautiful work being done in that genre by so many talented directors. I just thought that looks like a lot of fun. I remember the first time I saw Raimi's film and learned that he was like 19 when he made Evil Dead, and we saw Evil Dead 2 later on at the drive, and I just thought, this guy's just having the time of his life. I mean, they just looked so much fun, and they were so much fun to watch. And so yeah, I vowed, once I got over my crappy early little movies and started to try and actually pay a bit more attention to film grammar and not just the special effects side of things, and how we can create the most gruesome effects possible, actually trying to tell a story visually. That became more and more a big focus of mine with the filmmaking. Was just trying to tell stories in the most visually exciting and interesting way possible, to take advantage of the medium, which is one of the things you can't do in literature. But you're creating worlds in other ways, like we mentioned earlier, making it more internal. It's a filmmaker's job to kind of present you with, an image or the best possible representation of that moment in the story that the filmmaker can conjure up. And so yeah, it's just it's something that I just love the genre for that reason.
I see there's a question here from...
Yep, apparently that's from my actual spouse. So
very good. Very nice. So the question was, cinema often borrows from literature. Do you find yourself getting inspiration from cinema for your stories? Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think, and I'd be curious if the process is similar for you, Jamie, but I feel like I get inspiration from all over the place, from conversations with friends, from relationships, from daily news, from music, from visual art. But definitely cinema is, a major touchstone for me. Like I mentioned earlier, that golden age of the 70s and 80s. But I'm also a huge fan of the 1930s horror cinema, the Bela Lugosi and Boris Karloff stuff, and the 60s and 50s and 60s, like Hammer horror, Vincent Price, the Corman. I love that stuff. All the way up to more contemporary films like Jamie Blanks and Rob Zombie and Kiyoshi Kurosawa. I live and breathe horror cinema and cinema generally. So it definitely finds its way in, I think.
Yeah, I think you get inspiration from all kinds of things in your life. Cinema is just one of them. But music's a big factor for me. I find a great piece of music can kind of transport you somewhere and conjure up your ideas. So yeah, they come from all over the place. Inspiration. It's hard sometimes to pinpoint where when you're reading a script and you get an image in your head. It's hard to know instinctually why you've chosen that particular image. But usually your first instinct is actually it's a good way to be guided by things, because there's something just instinctual about what the job requires. You're an interpreter of someone else's work. You've got to put it up on the screen. Follow your instincts is a really good advice. If you've got good instincts, that haven't really down in the past.
Right. Do you play music on your sets? Oh, sorry.
No, sorry.
No problem.
I was just gonna say I have another question for both of you guys. I'm a comic collector too. I collect comics, graphic novels, omnibus, that type of thing. When you guys were younger, were you ever inspired, or did you read comic books, graphic novels early on?
Yeah, for sure. I used to love comic books. I used to love Man magazine and all that kind of stuff too. I used to read as much as I was reading from, I think I was about 3 when I started devouring little children's books and stuff. And I just got into reading it used to be a habit for me. We'd go on a holiday somewhere in Australia. The first thing I'd find is the secondhand bookshop, and I'd just load up a pile of stuff and take it with me. And I've always loved reading, and it's like like we said earlier, it's a completely different way of having a story told to you than in cinema. And in many cases, it's actually a superior experience because of all those things that an author can conjure up that a film director just can't do that in the same way. So I found comics were great, were very helpful in terms of developing visual grammar for things too, because you could see someone laying out panels literally like a storyboard, and telling a story that way. So I'm not so much into comics these days, but I was certainly I used to love them a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, same thing here. As a kid, I was into comics. I remember, I think I was, again, probably around 12 or 13. That's probably like a pivotal time period in terms of developing your interest. But I remember I read Neil Gaiman's Sandman as well, and that was a incredible piece of work, and I still love that. I pick up the odd graphic novel here and there. Like I loved Charles Burns's Black Hole. That's a great body horror coming of age graphic novel. I probably don't read as much of it as I should. So many books, so little time. But
I've been reading these ones a while back. They were fabulous.
Oh yeah.
Oh nice.
Oh my god. Some of the stuff in there is nightmare fertilizer. I tell you, it's whack.
Ito was one of the great horror. Horror period. Ito was just insane, insanely amazing. The reason I asked that basically is because there's filmmakers like people like Sam Raimi that are incredibly visual filmmakers, and you can see that a lot of that came from Sam Raimi was a lover of like Spider-Man in the comics, and that basically when you look at a lot of these things, like I'm guessing you storyboard your stuff when it comes to films, where you have somebody that storyboards it, and comics, you get there. This is your first, like before you even get into the genre, before you're writing it down, before you're making your first script, these are your storyboards. These are your first experiences with storyboards before you see them actually come onto before you're actually doing them. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, I remember working extensively with that. That's how I got the job. My first job was to bring in a storyboard artist to work with me, figure out a couple of scenes from the movie and present them to the studio who were going to spend millions of dollars to make this film and say, well, this is how I would structure it visually. And it was like you have to show them something graphically, and storyboards are great because it's really cheap to experiment that way and kind of come up with different ways of shooting things. Way more cheap, way more efficient and way more cost effective than once you get to set and trying to figure out your vision on the set. You need to actually have all that stuff down. And I think storyboarding, action sequences and anything that involves elaborate special effects or multiple, especially when you've got multiple cameras operating at the same time on a scene, I think storyboards are essential just so everybody knows what's going on. You can put them up on the board, tick things off when you've knocked those shots over. And I'm a big believer in that. Shot lists are fine for some things, but the visual storyboard pretty hard to beat when you've got complex things you need to put down on camera.
There was an interesting little question there. Basically, have you ever started, working on something you've been extremely excited about, and then realized there's something came out around the same time period that like just this is so similar to what I was going to write, or something similar to what I was going to make? Because people have this, like great ideas.
Well, it's funny how Hollywood made a habit. Sometimes you notice, like back in I think it was 88, they made like 4 films about a guy getting electrocuted and coming back to life like a prisoner. There was Shocker in prison, and there was The Chair and something else. And then we got 2 asteroid movies in the same year. It goes on and on. You can draw a long line. There's so many years where you've the same idea kind of done twice by different directors. That's never happened to me personally. I've definitely invested a lot of time on a project and seen the whole thing get yanked away because they needed a Canadian director for the tax breaks all of a sudden because the money came out.
Seriously.
I was on a film. I spent a year on a film with Nick Cassavetes, scouting locations in Fiji. And I was so excited about making this film. I brought Michael McDonald, my urban legend producer, onto the film to do it with me. Yeah, and after a year, it just it became apparent that the money was going to come out of Canada. They tried as much as they could to just keep me on the film because they didn't want to lose me as the director. I found all the stuff, but it just wasn't going to be possible. The tax breaks wouldn't have occurred, and I just got kicked to the curb, unfortunately. So I've had that happen to me, and that sucks. That was right before I did.
Damn Canadians.
Oh no, it wasn't a Canadian fault, but it was just a shame, it was just a shame.
Yeah, I'm trying to. I've been working on my second novel for a few years now, and I explored the satanic panic cultural moment in one of my stories in Darkest Hours called Satanic Panic. But for a few years, I was just obsessed with like the Christian propaganda documentaries on tape that you could watch about this moment. And I just absorbed so much of that. And a lot of that worked its way into my thesis. And that was kind of the foundation for my second novel originally. But I saw, again, for whatever reason, whatever it is, it's something about the zeitgeist. So many people have been tapping into the satanic panic in film and literature recently that I ended up kind of redirecting my focus for that book. And it's now in a more contemporary setting. And I'm sort of dealing with maybe the hangover or the residue of the satanic panic. Right. But I think, I don't know what about you, Jamie, but I feel like when I'm working on something, in a way, I have to try and shut out those voices and that noise. Like, oh, have I been here before? Has someone else already done this? Because if you let them, those voices can really psych you out. So to some degree, yeah, I try.
Absolutely, you can't second guess yourself, and you can't. Yeah, exactly. You just have to shut that stuff out as much as possible, because they'll consume you if you let all that that self-doubt creep in, or the uncertainty about other factors that you can't control.
Yeah,
hopeless. Can't operate that way. No, you're right to do that, Mike. That's the way I try and deal with it too. But it's something that every creative has to deal with. We all have to put up with that, with those voices, and as much as we can shut them out, the better. But yeah, it's something we've got to deal with.
Amen to that. Yeah.
Looks like Mikey asked a question there.
Oh, it's a question from Frank. Thanks, Frank. Frank says, Mike, in Shelter for the Damned, how did you come up with the personality for Mark? How would his depth and darkness translate to the screen? That's a really good question. I mean, so Shelter for the Damned originated to a large extent from my interest into non-horror American writers. Jim Thompson, who's a famous noir novelist, and Hubert Selby Jr., who wrote the novel Requiem for a Dream and Last Exit to Brooklyn and a few others. And I was just really interested in translating the idea of a character who is ultimately consumed by his demons into a coming of age story. I had never seen that as the focus of a coming of age novel. So that was originally where the book came from. And then I was also pulling from my my fixation on cosmic horror. So people like H.P. Lovecraft and more contemporary writers like Kathy Koja. In terms of writing it for the screen, I think it's a matter of really selective dialogue and character action. You don't get the interior monologue. I'm not going to do voiceover, so I'm not going to do like a noir style voiceover in this. So yeah, I'm just trying to, and I'm trying to think of really creative, unique ways to deploy flashback, because I think flashback can also be maybe a cheap trick to fall back on, but I think if used correctly, it can be really powerful. So I'm really early in the stages of drafting the treatment, but that's where I'm going with it so far. So pray to the old ones for me, as Jamie and I used to say when we were working on our project. Yeah.
Now that's something I'd be really excited to see. There's one neat little cut. Ever see the movie Final Girls?
Yeah,
I have.
So there's this neat cut thing within the film, and you got to see this, Mike, because where they do a flashback to the 1980s, and the killer is kind of stopped for a second because the 1980, basically the date is on the bottom of the screen, and he's tripped up by the date, which is a neat little concept.
Yeah, it's a fun little movie.
Was that Abigail Breslin in that one, or is that something else? I
think Abigail Breslin did the other. There's one. There's one called Final Girl. There's one called Final Girls. I think Breslin's in the kind of a lower budget, like one called Final Girl, and it's more of a kind of an indie type thing. And the other one, we'll have there's Tisa Farmiga. The Vera Farmiga's
cool.
sister.
Right.
Yeah, she's great.
no, it's a fun film. Like I think you'd like it.
I'll add it to the infinite queue.
Yeah, exactly. Stuff we got to catch up on.
That's the one good thing about being inside. When you're not writing, you can actually.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been binge watching a lot of Nicolas Cage films recently. I just think he's such an interesting performer, and just going back through all the eras of his work, such an incredible filmography.
Oh, I love Cage. Come on, he's magnificent.
He's the best.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Do you have a favorite?
I'm really bad at picking favorites because it's like you pick something and then there's so many other great ones. Like if I say Raising Arizona, like what about Mandy? You know, there's so many great ones. I don't know that I've got a favorite. I just love Cage. I'm grateful. I don't think there's no such thing as too much Kurt Russell, and there's no such thing as too much Nick Cage.
Amen.
Yeah.
I can take Cage all day, every day. He's fabulous.
I kind of think that Cage, like, he was good from the beginning, but the real spark comes in Vampire's Kiss.
Oh,
where you start to see like this different Cage, and it goes from there.
Genius. Yeah.
He's done an amazing body of work. I mean, really, you know, he's pretty sensational. I'm just looking at the live chat. What are people asking?
You're checking that.
I think
there's love for Wild at Heart there.
Oh, Wild at Heart is great. I love Snake Eyes and Bringing Out the Dead a lot. Those are both
great.
They don't get enough credit, man. Especially Snake Eyes.
That's right.
Fucking amazing. Yeah. And I just recently saw Paul Schrader's film Doggy Dog. That's Cage and Defoe. I thought that was spectacular and so.
Yeah, that's my list.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I think you would love it, Jamie. It's so undervalued.
I can't believe I haven't seen that one yet.
And such as because it's a Schrader film too. You think it wouldn't be, but because I love Schrader.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah.
Blue Collar is one of those two that I don't think enough people saw that I just really love by Schrader. And it's just such a genius film.
So what do we got here?
Any questions?
Yeah, guys. She's Vera's daughter. There you go. They'll always correct me when I'm wrong, so I depend on them for that because I'm wrong so much. So, there you go. Apparently, we got some love for Blue Collar, so right on. Somebody's seen it besides me.
So, what have you seen lately, Aaron, that you really enjoyed?
I really enjoy. Oh, God, the best thing, and the worst thing about doing this is that there's a lot of movies that I love to watch, and if something gets brought in my mailbox and I gotta review some stuff, then I gotta put back some stuff that I really really want to watch and get done what I need to do. Though there have been some things that recently that have interested me. I saw it's a little indie werewolf film called I Am Lisa, and I actually like I went in. I wasn't quite sure what it was going to be. They don't go like all in on the werewolf makeup. They do like really kind of real subtle like aspect to it, and it's lower budget. But something I'm a big werewolf fan. Like I'm a huge Paul Naschy fan. I'll tell you a movie that I recently watched that you both should definitely check out in a second. But I Am Lisa stood out to me for some reason. There's a couple actors, and especially that I said, yeah, okay, I'm going to keep my eye on these people, which was interesting. It was always nice when I find something like that. I remember I was watching years ago a movie called Camp, and I was, there's this little girl in it, and she does the Schroeder, the Sondheim song, Ladies Who Lunch, in one part of the film, and she's like just belting it out, and I'm like, this girl is going to be a star. There's just something special about this actress. And like years later, Anna Kendrick became pretty popular, which is a really cool film. If you haven't checked it out, it's like a kind of a coming of age film at a drama camp, kind of different. But recently, I watched Queens of Evil. That was put by Mona Macabre, and it is such a cool little film. It stars Ray Lovelock, who is not just he's a actor, but he's also a musician. So he actually does the songs.
He's a guy from at Manchester Morgue, isn't he?
Yeah, that's the guy.
Yeah, right.
And like it's such a cool little film. It's almost like it's kind of a folksy type of horror film. He kind of slightly satirical. Basically, the concept is that he's a hippie. He's very free spirit, and he stops to help this guy, helps him change his tire. And the guy is kind of very like ominous and got rich and kind of a jerk. And when Ray Lovelock's changing his tire, he goes out there and he like puts a nail in the guy's in his motorcycle. So he ends up having to he chases him because he gets really upset about it, and the guy gets he gets driven off the road by accident. He gets killed, and he tries to help him out, but nobody stops for him because he's a hippie, and he ends up going to this farmhouse where he stays overnight. And this girl comes the next day. She finds him there, and she's got two friends or sisters. It's never really said for sure, and they invite him in, and then things take a weird turn, and it goes in some unique without giving too much away. There's a bit of a witchcrafty kind of a folksy horror, meta commentary on like the time period and the class social struggles. So it's a really good film, and Ray Lovelock does the songs for it. And the opening song has kind of a Dylan-esque type thing to it, and definitely worth checking out. I would recommend it.
When's this from?
It's pardon?
Oh, I was just asking the release date. Oh, sorry, Jamie.
No, that was like from the 70s. It was released by Mondo Macabra. They released mostly like in international films.
Very cool.
That sounds good. I saw something on Netflix not that long ago called Run. Have you seen that with Sarah Paulson?
Not yet. I hear great things about that one though.
I've heard good things.
That was kind of like a classic, like the thrillers that they used to make in like the 90s, but just really well done. I mean, a really insidious story too. I won't give anything away because I would hate to ruin all the little twists and turns in this film, but I highly recommend that. That was the best thing I've seen on Netflix in quite a while. My wife actually watched it without me. I was working on some music one night, and she said, "You got to watch this film." She watched it a second time with me. And I'm really glad she turned me on to that. It was really, really, really good. Highly recommend that one. I'm trying to think what else recently that stood out. I really like Nomad Land. I actually got a screener of that ages ago, and I've watched that a few times. And a few of my friends say, "Oh, it's boring" or whatever, but I actually really liked it. I thought it was a really interesting experiment where you take two actors and you drop them into a movie full of real people, and it was a really brave experiment, actually, too, to try and make a film that way. It turned out brilliantly, but it could have very easily gone another way. I don't know what you guys thought of Nomad Land, but I was really impressed with it.
Did you see it, Aaron?
I got to be honest, I haven't had a chance to check it out yet.
Oh,
I'm catching up on so much, to be honest with you guys.
It's worth your time. It's really good.
Yeah, it's something that, from what I've seen, it's something that I'm interested in.
Anything with Frank it's worth watching. She's such a fabulous actress.
She's terrific. Yeah.
Yeah, she's really great. I love that a lot.
Yeah, but what about you, Mike? Anything that you've been watching recently, or anything that already stands out?
I mean, in terms of recent films, let's think here. Yeah, because I've been I was on a De Palma kick for a while, just going back, rewatching a bunch of his work, and then Snake Eyes got me on a Cage kick. I go on these like journeys when I'm
another feeling
off in different directions.
Yeah, exactly. And before that, I was doing Fincher. So, yeah, I'm trying to think of new watches. Oh, I guess it's not a new film, but I just saw Casualties of War for the first time. That was a blind spot.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, God, that's a harrowing film.
It is a harrowing movie. But also a beautiful looking movie as well. But I mean, yeah, Penn and Fox are great in that movie. It's a really strong piece of work. I remember he copped a lot of flack for it at the time. I can't remember why, but De Palma always seemed to be copping flack from the critics at the time. And you go back and look at all those movies, and they're just fabulous.
Yeah.
Look at what they said about Body Double and Scarface. I mean, which both of those movies earlier in the year. It's like, give us a break. They're amazing.
Yeah,
Body Double was one of my favorites too. That's which is why I hate like that the critics rag down so much. And Scarface too. Like, are you serious? Like, that's a classic now. Everybody, if you're watching MTV Cribs, everybody Scarface.
Yeah, that's right. It's like, how many directors can make those movies like back to back? I think you followed up Scarface with body double, right? I mean, they're extraordinary pieces of work. Off the back of Carrie and Blowout, and it just goes on and on and on. The guy's a genius.
And
early Barbara Crampton work in body double too.
That's right.
That's right. Yeah.
That's a great little movie. One of my favorite scores too by DiNaggio. I just love that score.
Yeah.
It's really beautiful, and it just suits the movie so well. I showed my son that film last year for the first time. He was doing a piece on Hitchcock and De Palma and Tarantino for his film studies at Montessori International Baccalaureate, and it's a good excuse to just take him through all the De Palma movies and just this is what a director does. Talk about a guy who's synthesizing the influences of another director so beautiful. Yes. He was always accused of being an imitator, but I think he built on what Hitchcock had developed. He was using film language, but that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to, the cinema evolved, and we learn from one another. And I always just thought I thought Hitchcock would be so touched that there was a director out there who was continuing in his style. I mean, there weren't that many other directors doing that at the time. So I just I've always admired Brian De Palma. I think it's got
you got De Palma and Franklin.
Yeah, we got exactly Richard Franklin, the great Richard Franklin.
Speaking of De Palma, what do you guys think of Obsession?
Oh, I think Obsession's really fun.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, it's really good fun. It was nice to get a proper release through Scream Factory, because I think a lot of the early VHS copies of Obsession, there was a lot of distortion or something in the sound mixes. It was never properly mixed on those early releases, so it was actually nice to hear it sounding something a bit normal.
Question for you both, I think.
Did you find it?
Casting actors. Well, all I can say for me is I have an idea of who I might want to play the role, but often I've been really surprised when someone's walked in to do an audition that they've inhabited the essence of the character in a way that I didn't anticipate. And there's all sorts of different takes, and when you're doing auditions, it's quite interesting because you're hearing the same material interpreted by all these different artists, and very interesting. Actually, there's been a few times where I've taken notes in an audition where I've deviated from what I might have thought the way I would approach a scene because of the way one of the actors is actually interpreted it, and it's always been fascinating to me. And I always love that process for that reason, because you're getting a chance to see your material, often hearing it for the first time, from an actor, but without having any input into how they've interpreted the role, you're getting to see all these different takes on the scene and on the character. So I often can tell pretty much straight away when an actor walks in the room if they're going to be right once they start talking, once they start delivering the scene. But there's been a few times where I've been convinced that the actor's not going to be right. Met them in the waiting room, like David Lyons from Storm Warning, for example. I met him. He played Jimmy, the eldest of the two brothers, and I just met him. He's this really handsome young Aussie guy. I thought, he seems like a really lovely bloke, and I've heard he's a great actor. It's like a shame he doesn't look anywhere near redneck enough to play this character. And he's yanked the belt off from his jeans and he's cracked it on the table in front of me, and he turned into that guy. Wow. And but wow, okay, I was wrong on that one. He can do it, and I cast him on the spot. So there's been a few actors, Jessica Caulfield and Michael Rosenbaum, that I cast on the spot because I'd either seen people prior to the role who weren't getting to that level, or I just knew straight away that they were the person. I didn't need to continue the search. They were going to be the. I mean, we always did explore. I'd met other actors up to the point where I offered them that role. It wasn't like I said, you've got the role on day one of auditions, and we've still got 5 weeks of seeing people. This was later in the audition process when we made those decisions, but it was on that first audition that we offered them the role. As it was later in the audition schedule. So sometimes straight away. Sometimes you're surprised by what an actor can do. But it's always just a matter of just trying to find the best person for the role.
That's the key part when it comes to casting. That's the difference between, like, say, some of the films that you've done, like and like some films that may not make it over, is that I find that in like an Urban Legend and Valentine Storm Warning, characters and like honestly that could be kind of flatter as if cast with the wrong person kind of have more of an aspect than they would initially have. Like nobody's just like when I'm watching Urban Legend, nobody's just a jerk or nobody's just like the slutty girl or nobody's just the jock type character. And like Michael Rosenbaum definitely stands out. Tara Reid. And it's not like the biggest role either with that for Tara Reid, but I think she's extremely great in the film.
Yeah.
And in a role that could have just been a flat walkthrough type role, I think that she lifts it above that.
Yeah,
and that's
Silvio did write some of the characters kind of as not stereotypes, but as types. You know, he's the jock and she's the. And it was a matter of then when we worked on the script together, trying to flesh the characters out so they weren't just a one-note thing. And then when the actor came on board, allowing them to bring some of their personality to the role, I think is what elevated them. They weren't just playing stock cardboard character cutouts. They they were characters with a little bit of depth and a bit of fun to them, and that was a lot of that was from the casting. So it was just it's a really important thing to get right is the casting of a movie. You've got to find the right balance between your cast. Sometimes you'll find an actor who's great for the role but doesn't kind of work with the other actors in the right way. So it is a chemistry thing. So it's an interesting process and something you've really got to get right as the director, because if you get those things wrong, you may never recover from it. It's when you've miscast a role, it's always going to be a miscast role. So you've got to do it right.
I love Danielle Harris and Joshua Jackson in that. Those spectacular.
So fabulous. I mean, Danielle's just one of the greatest people I've ever worked with, and I love Danielle. Loved her in the Halloween movies, but she did a lot of action films as well, and she'd done a lot of work by the time I got to work with Danielle, and I was overjoyed that she wanted to do the film, and I just loved working with her. Everyone did. She's just an absolute, she's a legend, absolute legend. One of the people. And Josh was just 19. He'd just come off Dawson's Creek. He was his star was on the rise at that point, and he'd just done Cruel Intentions for Neil. He'd just come off that. With the blonde hair, and he said, "Do you want me to go back to my original color?" I said, "No, you're playing a snowboarder. It's perfect."
Cool.
And he worked for that role, and
yes,
and he's one of the sweetest guys ever. And he's Canadian as well. He used the money that he made from Urban Legend. He brought his mum a home, so he's just a good guy. I'd love to see him again. I wasn't able to catch up with him when we did the Urban Legend documentary. We just couldn't track him down, and I just haven't found a way to see Josh in a long time. So I'm hoping that will change in the future and our paths will cross again, because he was one of the happiest experiences I've had with anyone was working with Josh on that movie. He was just a sweetheart, and I wish him all the best. He's a good guy.
He's such a brilliant actor too. He brings to every role he's done. I'm huge. I'm not going to lie. I'm a Dawson's Creek guy.
Me too. I love
that stuff. And he was so good in that. And I never thought I'd want to see Pacey with Katie Holmes' character, but I did. At the end, I did. So, like when you're writing a script, when you're writing something like a book, do you I'm a writer, not to this extent that you have. Do you cast like in your mind? Do you have like actors in your mind when you're writing?
Sometimes I might have like the cadence of someone I know or the cadence of a certain actor in mind, so I can get the right like rhythm or naturalness to the dialogue, but nothing overtly comes to mind. There's one character in my second short story collection, Peel Back and See, who I based off a few he was based off a certain type, I guess, a certain type of conservative blowhard, and I kind of tried to pattern his speech after a few different people. So that's one example that comes to mind. I had a question for Jamie that I've been curious about, which is when you start films, do you have specific, because I remember you and I were talking about Catherine Bigelow being kind of a visual influence for you in some ways. Are there specific films you look at when you're starting a new project, or does it differ from project to project? Do you show films to your cast and crew?
I on Urban Legend, we watched Catherine Bigelow's Blue Steel, and we watched I showed a bunch of films to my cinematographer for different reasons. Like I remember I showed him Elm Street 4. I said, don't worry about, we're watching this movie for the way that the camera is moving. I'm not the lighting design or anything else like that, but just the way the camera moves in that film. And I'd have all different things that we'd watch, but it was really Blue Steel was there because I wanted to create. This is the atmosphere I want. We're not going to rip off the look of Blue Steel. It's not appropriate to have that stylized look for Urban Legend, but it's the kind of the intent of the cinematography, and I wanted to sort of impress that on him. And already from his reel, I'd seen so much gorgeous stuff. That's what drew me to James in the first place, was he had this gorgeous show reel. And I knew he could do all this stuff already. I was watching it. Beautiful high contrast footage, and he'd done a lot of it for television. So I knew that was going to be an advantage because even though it was quite a long shoot, it was like 50-something days. It was in Toronto in the summer, so there wasn't a lot of nighttime. It was actually quite nights were quite short, and we had to do rain rig. We had to rig for rain. We had to do all sorts of big lighting setups and stuff. So I knew I needed someone who could move fast. So yeah, we sort of we watched all this stuff together, and then that's kind of how we landed on the look for the movie. He'd taken on board what I said, and I thought he did a brilliant job bringing that to the screen. With Rick Boda, we didn't necessarily need to look at stuff because he'd done Tales from the Crypt and everything. And then Valentine was a kind of different. I wanted a different, more glossy kind of approach to Valentine. The colors in Valentine are much brighter and poppier.
Yeah,
it's a different kind of feel to Urban Legend. So we kind of just discussed it, and it's a matter of working with the production designer on that one to kind of create that look. So we didn't really refer to any other films so much on Valentine. But on my two Australian films, the cinematographer and I had gone to film school together. So he knew all my references because we'd watched all that stuff together for years. So I didn't need to watch anything with Carl. He already knew the look that I liked. He shot Silent Number for me, my student film and everything. So he knew probably better than anyone what the look that I liked was going to be. So he nailed it on Storm Warning. I mean that looks precisely as I wanted it to look. Australian Gothic was my intent on that one, and Long Weekend was all about just was extracting the natural beauty of that location, and at night time not making it feel like movie night. I wanted the night in that film to feel like real night when there's not a light source nearby. Everything else will go off into almost pure blackness. And so it was very different from the night stuff in Urban Legend, which is kind of like movie nighttime. But it still felt realistic in Urban Legend, but it is a much more stylized version of night than I would have done for Long Weekend. So every film's a little bit different. Every film's got its own sort of visual language, and I'm hoping to work with one of my previous cinematographers on a film that I'm doing later this year. Hopefully, we'll see what happens. It'd be nice to reunite with one of those guys again and just see if we can actually make another one together. So it's working with your first AD and your cinematographer. That's the little unit that gets you through the entire movie. Three of us all have to be in sync about what we're doing. Have to have a plan for the day. Have to know what the goals are, and the cinematographer has to be inside my head. So when we go and look at rushes the next day together, we know exactly what we plan to get and get them. So I love that whole process.
And speaking of the more modern day actors that are out there now, like the new generation that's coming up, is there any people that stand out that you like to work with?
Yeah, I mean, there are a few. I don't know if they say, like, I love that actor in this, I want to definitely work with them. I would always be driven by, like, what story am I going to be telling? And then I would start looking at it from that perspective. Yeah. It's not like I feel that way more about like older actors I grew up with. Like, it doesn't matter. I could be doing a movie in 3 months and 6 months time and say, well, who would you like to be in the movie? Well, I'd like Tom Atkins in that movie.
Yeah.
Bring him in the movie. But when it comes to the new up and comers, I don't really have that. I don't approach it like that. I'll find those people through the audition process.
Tom Atkins is a legend. What can I say? Yeah.
Man, he's one of my favorites.
Thrill me. He's great.
I love him from the very beginning. You know, he's amazing.
It's. I mean, you have some of those faces in urban legend, like with Robert Englund and Brad Dourif. These like legendary kind of icons of the genre.
That's weird. When we cast Brad, he was the first thing that popped into my head when I'm reading the script, because actually, I don't know, because when you're writing, I'm sure you're not casting actors in yet, but when you're reading a script, I'm already sort of thinking of casting at that stage. And for some reason, probably it was Cuckoo's Nest, but Brad popped into my head straight away. I wanted him, when it screamed that last line, I wanted Brad Dourif screaming that line, because no one screams a line like Brad Dourif screams a line, man. I mean, he's seriously.
That's so true. Yeah.
He's just got something. He's got a power about him, and you just feel it. And I needed that line to go through people and send shivers down the spine. And I'm always so pleased when people say, "Oh, that line gave me goosebumps." It's like exactly why we cast Brad Dourif to deliver that line. So, yeah, it was lovely having Brad, and then Robert coming into audition. Was just such a great idea to use Robert because of all that cool baggage he brought to it. And he was playing a red herring, and it was kind of so much fun to have the movie. Well, maybe Freddy Krueger's killing everybody, but maybe he's not, because that's so obvious. You know, you just don't know. It's just having him play a red herring in that particular story was perfect. And Silvio was so happy when we got Robert, because we were talking about someone like that to play the role. We were never sure if we'd actually get Robert Englund, but we're overjoyed that he said yes to that. So, you know, there weren't that many more opportunities to go kind of meta with the casting, because some of the roles had to be cast out of Toronto. And I was so happy we got John Neville, because of, you know, he's a fantastic actor with a huge list of credits, but also he was known to kind of my audience and in the X-Files and stuff. So he had some visibility to those kind of people. So, yeah, I just wanted some familiar faces in amongst all the new actors that we were bringing, because a lot of those actors were being seen for the first, you know, or second time in their career, and it was just nice to have a bit of genre royalty mixed in, you know, amongst all that stuff too.
Because when you had Danielle Harris, I'm trying to remember now. I know she'd done the Halloween films and that, but had she done a lot of films as like an adult, as an adult actress, like at that point?
The Last Boy Scout. I know she did I think she did another one with Dwight Little, another action film. Is it Mark for Death or something? She'd done a bunch of stuff. She'd been in a bunch of movies, and I'd seen her in a few things. And I always just was so impressed with her in Halloween 4. I mean, I thought she was she was a little kid. She knocked it out of the park. And it's just, you know, that's just raw talent. She hadn't, you know, you can't be trained at that age to be that good. You either got it or you don't. And she's always just had the goods. And yeah, no, I was delighted to get to work with Danielle. You know, if she hadn't been in the Halloween movies, you know, I still would have wanted to cast her, because she's just, you know, I'd seen her in other films anyway. I just think she was fabulous. And that wasn't right, you know, because she was in Halloween, but it certainly was keeping that theme going of like, we've got the Child's Play, we got Elm Street, and we got Halloween. It's like, I got a Friday the 13th guy in there. The guy who's the guy, I know him. That was Valentine. Yeah, no, I got the guy, the pastor at the funeral of Shelley at the start of the film. He was from Friday 8. So no, I didn't get him. People in I made up for later.
Would you ever want to do something like that? I know you've done your own like genre stuff. Would you ever want to helm something like that? Helm a Friday, helm a Halloween.
Since I was a kid, my dream was to do Friday the 13th, Part 13. So guess what? The next Friday the 13th movie is going to be Part 13.
This is the guy.
Yeah, well,
I would love to see that, man.
Hell yeah!
I would love to do a Jason movie, and I know the lawsuits kind of held everything up. I mean, you know, my kid got into horror really through Friday the 13th, and he started playing that game, and you know, he loved it. We've both got hockey masks over there signed by Sean and Kane Hodder and stuff that we got done in 2018 when we were over there doing Urban Legacy. They were interviewing Sean and Kane for the Friday box set. They were even, you know, Peter Bracke was even doing stuff for that way back then. So yeah, I would love. One of my dream things to do would be to do that next Friday movie. I don't know who they're going to get to do it, or if it's going to happen, or it's going to happen at Paramount, or Michael Bay's going to do it. I don't know where the rights will end up. It'll probably go to Blumhouse, to be honest.
Yeah.
Jason Blum will snap those up as soon as they're available. But yeah, man, nothing would make me happier than to finally get a chance to do my Friday movie. I wanted to do one since I was a kid, and I would do it differently than the remake. I'd have my own take on it, but I'd take it back to basics, but try and modernize it just enough. But yeah, anyway, that'd be lovely to do. I would be all over that. I'd also love to do that movie one day, but that's probably not going to happen either.
Have you ever spoke much with Blumhouse, with Jason Blum or any of those guys?
No, nobody. No, I haven't spoken to those guys.
Because it seems like a nice get in there and they have this set formula that they do for the Blumhouse productions, and some I think are fantastic, and other ones I think are placeholders for the next fantastic one that's coming.
Right.
So, but I think you'd work well doing something there too.
Yeah, I don't really have any contacts at Blumhouse, but I would certainly be open to doing something over there. I mean, I'll be glad to do that. But hey, wait and see what the future holds. Maybe Mike and I'll take something over to Jason and see where we go. We've got a few doors we're going to knock on, Mike.
I look forward to that.
Oh yeah, we'll be doing that for sure.
So you got to ask a question, a non-movie question here. Do you guys have pets? I have cats. What do you guys have?
We don't have any pets here, but I love cats. My parents have cats, and my wife's allergic to cats, unfortunately. That's why we don't have one. But I would love to have some cats. Love dogs too, but I'm more of a cat person.
I also love dogs and cats. I don't have any right now. I'm going to be moving to I'm going to be moving to New Brunswick for my PhD, and I don't really know anybody there, so I might get a cat when I move. That seems like a good call, but no, not in my 500 square foot apartment, right? I don't know. It's kind of small. And
right.
Yeah.
I've been there, man.
Yeah.
Tell us about the PhD thing, Mike. I'm excited to hear a bit more about this.
Yeah, so I'm starting in the fall doing my PhD in English literature at the University of New Brunswick with a focus on creative writing. I'm so excited for that. So yeah, your dissertation, from what I gather, is a long piece of fiction. So it could be a novel, a short story collection, a play. Yeah, I'm really excited for that move for sure.
And that's really hard to get into, right? I think that you mentioned there's only 2 of those courses, in the entire country. And I imagine it's like any of those elite kind of courses, there's a lot of competition for a very small amount of places.
Yeah, we only have 2. There isn't much of a creative writing PhD culture in Canada, as not nearly as much as there is in the States. We only have 2 creative writing PhD programs in Canada. One of them is in Calgary and the other one is in New Brunswick. So yeah, and it's only 4 people in my cohort, so it's going to be a really small cohort. Yeah, I'm very excited. I think it's going to be an ideal place to learn and study.
It'll be so intensive when there's only that many students there. That'll be fabulous for you.
Yeah, I'm really excited for that.
Out of the park there, mate.
Thank you.
So well there. How long is the course going to run for?
It's 4 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how much of the year is dedicated to the course? Do you get some downtime, or is it pretty much full go?
I think it'll be divided up. So there's coursework, and then you'll also be doing some teaching or research to supplement the studying. And then you have your comprehensive exams and your dissertation. I can't remember how it's all divided up, but so for my comprehensive exam, from what I understand, I'll be kind of surveying all of the canonical horror and Gothic texts and getting to know those for my exam. So yeah, it's going to be hard work, but I think fun hard work.
Hard work, but in an area that you love, it's like
exactly
hard work too. But I loved every minute of it. So you just, once you're immersed in something that you love doing, it doesn't feel like work. It just feels like it's getting to you're finally doing what you want to be doing, and that's amazing. When do you need to move to New Brunswick?
I'm hopefully going to be there in early August. It's hard to plan anything right now with COVID and
right.
Alberta is being hit really hard with case numbers right now. We're #1 per capita in North America. So,
Wow.
yeah, I'm getting my first shot next Friday. So, or I suppose this Friday.
Right.
So, ideally early August, but
Okay.
yeah.
And you're moving too at some stage, Aaron, right? You're going to go to Morocco, is that right?
Yeah, hopefully.
Right.
I'm excited about that. I'm excited about Mike's move. That I'm so fascinated with the fact that you're getting to do this. And when you're going into it, you're definitely going into it already armed with a series of knowledge and the writing acumen, which is fantastic. So, but if you're in New Brunswick, if this craziness all goes away, if I get out into Brunswick sometime, we got to meet up. So,
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
because we're not that far away.
You guys got to do that. It'd be great.
Definitely.
And it's such a nice small area too. I haven't been to New Brunswick in a while, but I remember like driving through there when I was going to Ontario. I was younger, and it's such a beautiful area.
It looks beautiful. Yeah, it looks absolutely beautiful.
I miss Canada. I had such a lovely time working in Toronto and Vancouver.
So I love Toronto. I've never been to Vancouver, actually. I'm Canadian. I've been to Vancouver, which is a shame.
It's gorgeous.
It is.
Yeah, no, I could live in Vancouver. Sorry, I'm just gonna. Do you need me?
No, if I was going to go anywhere, if I was staying in Canada, if I wasn't going to go to Morocco, then I'd either be in Ontario somewhere or I'd be in Vancouver, because I'd want to make whatever the next step is from what I'm doing right now to hopefully doing something film-wise. Whether it's like I don't think I want to be in front of the camera anymore, but there's a lot of stuff that I would love to do behind the camera.
What would you like to do, Aaron? What would be your choice?
I love to direct, and I love to write. Again, I've like I said before we got on air, I was working on some stuff, and I got here too. Actually, when I initially came here, I was going to spend like the first year and a half just writing, just like getting at my keyboard and just like typing the hell out. And I have had the worst damn case of writer's block that you can imagine.
A lot of
so I got to this. So we were outside the town, perfectly like isolated, just what you imagine. Perfect thing for a writer. Bit of nature. I can just go outside the door. The houses were like farther away. I had a lot of space to myself, and right. I could not write a word. It was about a year and a half later. I was gone to the theater, actually. I'd gone to see Strangers, sequel Strangers.
Oh, yeah.
And I was walking up the road, and there was kind of like the heat lines on the road. It was a warm day. And I saw this guy, and I saw what really never saw what he looked like at that point. I saw like the figure of him, kind of like the wavy figure of him. And like, just, your ideas come, I guess, pretty much from everywhere. And something hit me as I was getting closer. And it was almost like an ominous feeling that I had, but it was kind of a fantastic spark too. So I went into Tim Hortons, pop here in Canada, okay. And I sat down and I took my iPad and I put on note and I just started writing, and it just started flowing out. So, but yeah, like when it comes to me, I love to direct. I'd love to write, and I love the cameo, like do something small, like do like a tiny scene. I wouldn't want to be I want to be front and center. I can see you, Mike. You seem like you're writing. You're a good-looking dude, man. You know that. So you do have the acting look to you. Like you do have the actor look to you. So I could see you on screen too. I'm older, so I'd have to be the guy in the background, feeding the birds, that type of thing.
I did. Yeah, I was really interested in that in high school and for a little while after acting, but I haven't done anything like that in a long time. Maybe as you write more and more, you become more and more, I don't know maybe like more shy or something.
Right.
Disappear into my keyboard. That's where I get out all the energy.
Yeah, I've never been taken with the urge to make a cameo in any of my movies. My two brothers are in my first film, though.
Oh, really?
Yeah, my younger brother Ben's the DJ in the party scene, and my other brother Tim is in. He's the bartender, and Michael Rosenbaum pushes him out of the way when he's coming down the stairs to check on his dog in the microwave. So I made sure I got him in twice because I wasn't sure if I'd be cutting the bartender sequence out. But I knew my brother behind the DJ booth would be covered because he was sort of part of the story at that point. So yeah, I snuck them both into the film. But I've never had any desire to be in the movies myself. I'm quite happy.
No director cameos like Hitchcock.
No, I'm very happy to be hidden away behind the camera. But it's it's something you should follow. Your passion, Aaron. You should make that happen. You should just say, I'm not just one day I'm going to do it. I am going to make that happen. I'm going to direct. I'm going to write something.
I'd love to. I mean, like honestly, we're moving. I'm thinking I have ideas in my head for certain locations that I've been to, and I'm thinking like, could I do this, and can I do this here? And it would be brilliant. I'd love to do it. I'd love to do something. I just don't know exactly what that is quite yet. Right. Well, it's never been more possible to make a film. I mean, you've got access to digital cameras and editing systems. And I mean, I've done documentaries and feature films all off this Mac. You know, we've literally like cut it, graded it, scored it. You know, like all those things that normally would take another whole building to do in the old days. Can all be done in one machine, and it's totally possible to make a film with far fewer resources than we needed in the past. So I'd keep that dream going, brother. I'd love to see you do that. It's it's good to take action on things that we passionately want to do, because you don't want to look back and regret. It's like, oh, I wish I'd made that film. Go and make it. The time will come. The time will come. Just don't push it off into the horizon. Just make sure you set yourself some goals to do it. I'd love to see you make something, brother. I appreciate that, man. Why we could, man. So always got Mike and I. You can call up. We'll do whatever we can. That's it. This is my support group.
I was just thinking when Jamie mentioned the dog in the microwave scene in Urban Legend, did you run into any trouble with censors on that first?
No, not censors, just people on the internet wanted to send me to hell. There was some campaign they were coming after me. I'm like, you realize it was a fictional dog, in a fictional microwave. Like, we didn't murder anybody. The little dog's alive and well. Was it the time? No, there was a lot of people. You can do all sorts of stuff to people, man. Just don't fuck with anyone's animals. Don't kill dogs. People don't like it. Everett didn't want me to kill the dog in Storm Warning. I remember Rob, who played the husband, the emasculated husband, hobbling around with a broken knee. He's like, Jamie, at least let me kill the fucking dog. I got to do something heroic in this movie. I mean, not that story we're telling. But the poor dog at the end of Long Weekend gets locked in the car by Jim as he goes off before what happens to Jim at the end of that film. So that poor dog didn't probably make it out either. So
right,
kind of to the poopers. But yeah, that first one, I just remember getting that snorkel cam and taking the back of the microwave off, and
so good.
The art director said, "This has been the weirdest day of my life. I've been." Exploded dog look like in the inside of a microwave? I have no idea. Would it explode? I don't know. I'm not going to test it.
Yeah,
it's a good creative license taken with that. But yeah, it was a horrible urban legend. But it was funny that Silvio managed to get it into the movie the way that he did, and it even formed the basis of the end of the trailer. So, no, we had a lot of fun with that scene. That was good fun. I remember that day very well.
That's a great scene. It's so memorable.
Did they really just? Yeah, it was great.
It is one of those moments. Yeah. Did they really go there?
Yeah, that's the one Sam Raimi kind of shot in the movie where we dolly through the microwave.
Yeah, totally. It's very Raimi. Yeah.
That was good fun. What else we got here on this chat now?
Any questions?
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of comments. Someone's asked, what are our favorite movie composers, Mike? Do you have a favorite movie composer?
I mean, it's impossible to pick just one, but
I'm the same. I'm just trying to think. Obviously, I love Carpenter, and
of course,
but I mean, Jerry Goldsmith would have to be way up there for me. I mean, I listen to his stuff all the time. But then I loved all the Tangerine Dream scores.
Yes, I was going to say, yeah.
There's stacks of composers I love. It's one of those things. Is you get asked on Twitter all the time, what are your top 5 favorite this, or what's your favorite that? And I'm not a guy I'm just not into ranking things at all like that. I just don't think of stuff like that. I enjoy things for different reasons,
Yeah.
But, yeah.
The Goblin stuff, or
I don't want to do that here again, because last time I did that, everything went offline temporarily. It lost me. But it's all up there too. I mean, this room's full of just all that kind of stuff. Love Goblin.
Jamie Blanks, seriously, one of my favorites. Yeah,
one of the all-time greats.
Bernard Herrmann. I mean,
oh come on, yeah. And actually, Chris Young said something about Bernard Herrmann. He said all composers, have been influenced by Bernard Herrmann ever since his work graced the screens. All composers have been influenced by him, and if they say they haven't, they're lying, or they're just unaware of it, because
exactly
he didn't invent so much of that kind of cinema, film language, and he's just apparently not a very nice man, much like H.P. Lovecraft. Not someone you want to sit down and have a beer with, but brilliant nonetheless.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, and you mentioned Tangerine Dream and Carpenter.
Oh,
definitely, yeah.
I got to see Tangerine Dream when they came to Australia right before Edgar passed away, and it was one of the best nights. But actually, Goblin had come the year before too. At the same time. They have this at the Melbourne Town Hall, this enormous pipe organ, like one of these. It's just absolutely epic. The pipes in this thing go up like 4 stories or something. This thing is wonderful. And they had Goblin, so they had Claudio Simonetti playing that organ.
Wow.
And when Tangerine Dream came, they tapped into it too, and they were doing stuff with it. And 2 very memorable concerts. I keep hoping Carpenter's going to come and bring his live show to Australia, but I think it's too far for him. And it's he's into like chilling out at the moment in life. He's not into like inconveniencing himself. So
playing video games, watching basketball.
Yeah. And fair enough.
Hell yeah.
He's Carpenter. He can do whatever the fuck he wants to do.
He can do whatever he wants. Yeah. And he's putting out records for us still. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah, it is cool that he's still doing that. It really is.
Yeah.
It's really fun.
Hopefully he'll score the next 2 Halloweens too.
Yeah, he's doing those scores.
Oh.
Yeah, that's going to be really fun.
Because 2018 was brilliant. I thought he did a fantastic job.
It did. It was really good. And it's just nice to see that he's got his son and his godson kind of working with him. That's really cool.
Yes. Yeah, I have that soundtrack on vinyl.
Do you have that one? Yeah. They released an extended edition of it, which I've got to try and track down, because I think I've just got the vanilla edition. I collected Carpenter scores on vinyl. God, the first thing I ever bought was Escape from New York on vinyl. I actually bought the score before I actually got to see the movie, and it's kind of weird. One of those few times when you actually know the score before you've seen the film. I must have listened to it 50 times by the time I actually watched the movie. Because I was very young when I bought that. It's good stuff. Actually, soundtracks, I've been a huge collector of all that stuff. That's why I was really happy to see your video the other day, Aaron, where you went through all the Howling Wolf Records stuff that Wall sent over. And, what a great label that is. I'm just so excited.
Brilliant. I mean, I love Wall's stuff. It's passion. You can tell, you can see when somebody's just doing something and just putting it out there, and somebody's like really has the passion for what they're doing.
That's right.
And he's got the passion. Like when I started opening them up, it's like, Kid of Christmas, obviously. And I'm putting it in. I'm a huge Silent Night, Deadly Night fan. I'm a huge Christmas horror fan. So I put in Silent Night, Deadly Night. I listened to the score. So I was telling you guys before. And it's fantastic. It's wonderful. And you could have been there. You could have stopped right there. Would have been fantastic. Perfect. But then flip on the second disc with Morgan Ames. And with all those like Christmas songs that were made, for the film.
Yeah, he nailed that release. It's an amazing little piece of work that he's done, and the liner notes are
totally brilliant.
It's a great package. It's a really good release.
Like it's those little things with the booklets, and I'm excited for with Storm Warning coming out with Crawl Space, and then it's Long Weekend right after that, or did I reverse them?
Long Weekend will probably be next year, but I was just so excited that War was open to my ideas. I said, God, I'd really love to get Mike and Adrian Rowe to do some liner notes on this thing. So it's not just me talking about the process of writing the score, but someone can actually give a bit of an overview about the film itself and how the music plugs into that movie and what it all means. And God, Mike and Adrian wrote such beautiful pieces for me. And we'll also graciously allowed it. He just said, look, we'll just add panels to the booklet up to, I think we can go up to 32 pages before the booklet won't fit into the CD jewel case anymore. So that's kind of the max. But we've got all these great photographs to include. It's going to be a really wonderful release. It's going to be a much more sort of packed release than any of the previous Blu-rays or there's one Blu-ray in UK. It'll probably be one of the nicer releases from anything associated with Storm Warning that's ever come out. So I'm just over the moon that we've got that score coming out with War. I've got the Long Weekend down the track with him, and there's a lot of other stuff he's got lined up this year, which is really exciting. And we're even talking about some other projects down the road, which aren't necessarily related to a particular film, but it would be film type music for similar kind of what Carbon has been doing with his things. We're actually talking concept stuff.
Brilliant.
So amazing.
I mean, I'm so excited that we've made that connection with War. It was because a composer on Twitter said to me, Matt Jansen said to me, you should contact Howling Wolf Records about your Storm Warning score. I thought it's a good idea. I wrote to War, and he said, I've been trying to find you since 2011. He literally showed me the email that he'd sent out to his guy in Australia 10 years ago. And it was crazy. Yeah, so we finally connected after all that time. So it probably would have come out a lot earlier, but it's the right time to do it now. So it's really cool.
I'm excited for that. That's one.
Yeah.
Storm Warning is one. It's honestly a most underrated film. I think it's such a shame. And definitely score-wise too. I love the score for Storm Warning.
Oh, yeah. Thanks, man. I really appreciate that. No, I wish the film hadn't been bought by the Weinsteins, because it's kind of gone into like I was talking with Greg McLean, the director of Wolf Creek, the other night. He and I are working on something, and he said the same problem happened with his film Rogue that the Weinsteins financed. It's now been. We think now the films are over at Lionsgate. So I know Umbrella and Entertainment in Australia want to release a Blu-ray, and I've got access to hours of video that was shot, fly on the wall stuff while the film was being made, and we could put together a really fabulous Blu-ray. And that stuff I think is just at standard definition, so we can fit hours and hours, and if we want to, onto a Blu-ray disc without sacrificing any picture quality of the main movie. So that could be a really stacked Blu-ray with a lot of extras on it. And I really would like to do that, because I think, a lot of people just haven't, the films just haven't been on their radar. They just haven't run up to see it. So it would be nice to, down the track to do a proper special edition of Storm Warning, because a lot of work went into the films, and, there's a lot of, people's hard work that sort of, when the film doesn't get seen, no one knows about it. So I'd like to change that if I can. And I'm always glad when I hear people have seen that film, because I know it's a lot harder to see than my other American films, and I'm always grateful when someone's taken the time to check out Storm Warning, because it's one of the films I'm most proud of too, for a lot of reasons. But I'm very, very excited to be working with Wolf Records and doing this soundtrack. You saw Aaron, that box full of stuff. There's an amazing amount of work that guy has put into this label, and it's just
God.
I've got them all here too. Just been going through them all, and there's so much good stuff here, and I'm just blown away. It's just a real labor of love. It's an indie label in every sense of the word, and it's dedicated to horror. And there's not that many brands now. There's maybe a couple of Blu-ray labels, but there's not that many physical media outlets dedicated just to genre stuff. Yeah. And I'm always grateful when people support that, because if we don't, we won't have them for much longer, and that would be a real shame.
It's brilliant. And the thing is too, when I got the CDs come, it made me remember when I, because obviously I'm older, I collected CDs, collected tapes back in the day, but I had my CD case that I took with me, like a lot of people did, especially when I was in college, of my choice CDs that I would just take everywhere that I went.
Yeah.
And opening up the CDs and then opening up, they have these beautiful like booklets with the liner notes. And I remember how I'd buy CDs back in the day, and because you never knew, you get a CD and sometimes it would just be there would just be the picture. Other times you'd look out, there would like liner notes or lyrics or something, and it was like, oh, I hit the jackpot. This is brilliant, and it brought up that like that love that I had of like for CDs and for collecting them, and I'd forgotten like how much I used to love it and how exciting that was to open that up, and it just brought it all back. It was just such a rush, and I felt like it really brought me back to like my college years, and like getting the various CDs, some of which I'm embarrassed to say that I bought, to be honest, but I'll keep those out of there. But to see some great stuff, and the fact that there's so much genre stuff. I never ever thought I'd have Willie Lummel's Boogeyman soundtrack on CD. And that's brilliant. Same with Shockwaves, another fantastic.
The Shockwaves one has been on a lot in my house. I love that it's an early electronic score, and just the quality of the mastering so great. When you think of the age of some of these tapes and things, they just sound brilliant. Even with the headphones on, there's no hiss, it's just pristine recordings, and I love that you're foregrounding some of these soundtracks on your channel now, Aaron. I think that's really cool that you're doing movies but also scores, because
I'll be spotlighting some of them on the channel. Actually, quite a few of them, and certain ones as they. As I'm going through them, as they strike my hands, okay, I got to make a video on this. And there's a few already. I'm like, okay, I'm excited to talk about this because it's just another aspect for me, like YouTube. This is my main creative outlet right now. And I love it. I've got such great community on here, and we talk film, and we talk all the geeky things. And this is the you got your puzzle piece, you got that one piece that's missing that you really, this is it. This is a spot that I want to that I want to go to. This is the next hill I want to go on, and it's a journey. It's an amazing journey, and thank God for guys like Wall that do that stuff, that like bring that stuff out there and put the passion into it, because it's insanely well done, and from anything from films to novels to music, it's. The arts just work when they do well. Like they work so well together. Like you guys, you've made your films. You've got your voice. You're out there, Mike. In an incredibly short period of time, actually, with the output that you got, it's been amazing. And as I've been reading through your stuff, it's been incredible. And it takes time to cultivate a literary voice, but you have one, and that's not something that happens to everybody. It's not something that happens every day. It's a genius thing, and it's either you got that or you don't got that. Like you can learn basics and you can learn certain things, but there's a quality that you got in your writing that you can't learn.
Yeah,
that I think
you're born with that level of talent, and it's just one of those things. That's your gift, That's what you can express it in ways that the rest of us can't, and it's an amazing gift. And I love that you've got a publisher behind you. You've got Darkest Hours coming out again through Journal Stone. It's so cool.
They're amazing.
It's so important for your work to be out there and available. And I'm really looking forward to reading the updated edition once I get through Shelter. I'm almost done with Shelter, but loving that so much. And that was Journal Stone as well, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. And they're also releasing my second short story collection, Peel Back and See. That's the one, in October. So it's a busy year in a great way.
Man. That's really good.
It's so exciting.
You've got a good following on Twitter too. It's really nice to see that you've got a good fan base there, and you're growing that all the time too.
Like you and I have always said it, I feel like horror is just where all the nicest people live. It really is true, right? Like almost across the board, just the sweetest, most supportive
people. Yeah, I've found the same thing. I mean, it's just there's so many lovely people on Twitter who've been reaching out and saying things, and I've made some connections with some people, and it's been wonderful. It's just great. You just realize there's a community of people out there who love the genre. Who like I do. I mean, I grew up loving these genre practitioners who make films, and if I got a letter from Carpenter once that blew my mind. There's the thought that you can interact with people out there who are fans of your films. It's like it's lovely. I just think it's really nice that they can have a dialogue go on with the creators of this stuff, and I've met other directors and writers and composers and things online through Twitter. It's been fabulous like that. I got a little thing going on the other day from Victor Miller, so it's really fun. Wow. So yeah, it's just, I think I was kind of in a self-imposed social media coma for quite a while, and it was only really this year in February, around the 20th anniversary of Valentine, that I popped my head up, and I'm really glad I did, because it's led to some really fun things, and I met guys like you guys by being on social media too, so it's always good.
I mean, I actually. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, sorry.
No problem.
No, I was just going to say that you got your commentary coming up actually tomorrow night, right?
Yeah, it's tomorrow. I'm going to be in this room tomorrow at 10 a.m. my time, Monday morning for me, but it'll be the Sunday night in the States, and it's going to be 5 o'clock in LA, like Pacific time, and then what's it going to be? Something like, I don't know, 8 o'clock in New York time, Eastern Standard Time. So that'll be really fun. It's going to be the first time I've seen my cast and crew together in one place for quite a while. We met a lot of them individually when we did the Urban Legend documentary. I sort of caught up with some of them during the interviews, but they didn't get to see each other. So I got to see them all separately. But this will be the first time these guys can sort of hang out and catch up. And I imagine that's going to be a lot of fun. Actually, I'm really looking forward to that stream. It'll be good. And Michael Rosenbaum will be there, so I know it's going to be funny.
He's hilarious.
He's very funny, man. I love him. I love them all. I mean, really, my DP is going to be there, and Tara and Rebecca will be there. It's so fun. And then Gina Matthews and Michael McDonald, two of the greatest producers I've ever had the privilege of working with. They'll be there. My buddy Edgar, who was my personal assistant on the movie and was just amazing, and he's now getting some really cool stuff going of his own to direct. And and Peter Bracke will be joining us too, who's written the book on the Friday the 13th book, Crystal Lake Memory.
Yeah. And
then he contacted me. He was doing a book called Scary Movies, which is going to be about the Scream era slasher.
Man.
Slasher wave. And he called me to interview me. And I said, this is the best possible time you could have called me, Peter. I've just booked a flight to the States to come and interview the whole cast and crew of Urban Legend and Valentine for the Blu-rays. So I said, how would you like to interview everybody? And he said, that's perfect. And he'd love to do that. And so he came and did every one of those interviews, which was just wonderful. And got material for his book. And, we helped produce the documentaries for the disc. So he's become a really good friend. So that was a great experience. And so he's going to be on the call as well, sort of helping ask questions and stuff and trying to give the thing some structure. So it's not just the whole so it's not just Michael Rosenbaum taking over and making us all laugh. No, it'll be great. I'm really looking forward to it.
Oh, you were going to say, Mike, before I interrupted you?
Oh, no problem. I don't know. Now I'm just thinking about how excited I am about that Peter Bracke book on.
Oh, yeah,
same here.
Yeah,
he interviewed like 200 people for it. I mean, he's spoken to everybody who was involved in that whole era: composers, directors, editors, producers, writers, actors. It's going to be a ripper of a book. I loaned him my cherub mask from Valentine because he was going to do something with it for the front cover. So he's had that since 2018. I hope I'm going to see it back one day.
He's wearing. That's his COVID mask, maybe.
Exactly. Yeah. So cool.
Wear that into the grocery store. Wow.
Yeah. He was going to do something like the Cherub and the Fisherman from I Know What You Did Last Summer and Ghostface and the Urban Legend Parker Killer all sitting in a movie theater with the projector over the head, and they're all eating popcorn. But that was going to be the original cover design, but there may be some issues with likenesses and stuff, like the Ghostface thing's owned by a corporation. So he's just trying to sort that out. It might be something more impressionistic for the cover, but yeah, he's been working on that very, very diligently for a long time.
I love that era.
Want that now.
Yeah, I know. Me too. It's an amazing era for horror cinema. Actually, there's so much good stuff.
It was a good time, and it's I just got that I Know What You Did Last Summer box set from 88 Films who did the Urban Legend trilogy too, and it was really fun revisiting that movie as well.
It's a great movie.
Yeah.
I missed out on the big one, but I'm going to get the slimline version of it. I don't have any of those films, and surprisingly, and I love like A Night of the Summer.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I didn't even know the thing had come out. I only got a copy because I wrote to 88 Films, and they were so sweet. They sent me one of the ones they had in their office. Yeah, I'm really happy with that Urban Legend trilogy. Though that turned out great. So that's kind of what we're doing this event. It's kind of the last big thing I can do online to sort of celebrate that release, and then yeah, it'll be great. I think that it's been selling really well.
For a collector, their 88 Films is a fantastic company. Just the stuff that they put out there, their slasher classics collection. They've got an Italian collection that they do, and an Asia collection, and they've been putting out these amazing sets.
Yeah, they sent me a bunch of stuff. They even sent me this Jackie Chan thing.
Oh, that's out of print now. I love that. I wanted that so bad. The Young Master.
Yeah, they've got a whole bunch of stuff here that they sent me when they sent the trilogy over, which is really cool.
Did you get any of their stuff, Mike?
I haven't. I want the. I mean, are they region specific?
A lot of them are, like region.
They're region B. They're region B, so you do have to have a multi-region player.
I got to say, Mike, go region free. It changes your life, man.
I know. Yeah. I need to.
It's really worth doing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got the. I was sent by my good friend actually from the UK. George sent me the Urban Legend box set as a birthday gift, and it was gorgeous. I mean, I haven't watched the Mary Lambert one yet, and I'm kind of intrigued because I have never seen it, and it's so different from the other two. Because I'm a huge slasher fan, and I grew up like reading Agatha Christie and all this type of stuff. I love the mystery aspect of this too. So that's another reason that slashers kind of rang true for me, and Giallo as well.
Yeah, right.
So then you get to the third one, and it's like this supernatural type story, and I'm hoping it's a supernatural story, and like kind of like a cool kind of a layered supernatural story, and not so much I'll always know what to do, which is a very different type of film, like Don Shanks, like his work on Halloween 5 and all that, and Grizzly Adams. But yeah, poor guy got stuck with that one. That's
yeah, I think the Mary Lambert one has some interesting elements to it. Actually, it's been a while since I've watched it, but I thought there was some intriguing aspects.
Yeah, I want to watch it with a commentary track on so I can hear about that. It's always nice hearing her talk about her films.
I love a great commentary.
Great filmmaker.
Oh, she's a genius. I hold her in the highest regard.
Yeah, she's great.
And she's worked from like films, and she does a lot of television now too. And she has such a distinctive voice, which is so fantastic just to see the stuff that she's done. But you're one of the early questions I asked, would you ever go back to Urban Legend? I know there's a new one being made now, like a different one. Would you ever go back to those wells?
Yeah, I actually have some really good ideas for a direct sequel to my movie. I left my movie open-ended very deliberately in that way because I had an intent about where we would take it after that. So there's always still a chance to pick up that thread. But they're doing the remake at the moment, and I'm sure it's going to be really fun, and I can't wait to see that. But yeah, no, of course, I'd go back to that well for sure. It's very, very rich territory with lots of great stories. So there's lots of things to do with that concept. Lots of creative things that can be done if
and it's one of those things where when it came out, you're like, I can't believe this wasn't made before.
Yeah, that was
like a movie that came out called Fender Bender, and it's a simple tale. Basically, this guy has accidents where basically they exchange information, like,
all right,
and then he ends up like dressing up. He's a killer, and he goes in and he stalks them and goes into their house. And I thought, why didn't I think of that? Why didn't somebody think of that before? It's just such a simple, genius idea, and I love things like that.
I've got it sitting there on a drive somewhere. I've got to check it out. I've been meaning to watch that one.
It's got a very good opening to it. It's one of those ones with you know all about the great openings.
Yeah,
Urban Legend really stands out for that.
Yeah,
because Urban Legend, that is one of the great openings. We're up there with movies like Scream and the Drew Barrymore thing. Urban Legend has one of those like iconic openings. That's good. That's going to stand like the test of time, and it already has. And that's the thing. One, it's a fantastic film, but much like films like Scream and When a Stranger Calls.
Yeah.
Urban Legend has one of those openings that it just stands, and it could stand on its own. It's just like a little mini film, and it's genius, and people remember it.
Well, we always thought of it as like a little mini movie within the movie itself.
Right.
And it was the first thing, obviously, that I read when I read Silvio's script, and it had me hooked from that moment on. And I thought, like, no matter how the rest of the script turns out, I want to make this movie so I can do that scene. That's just so wonderful and so eerie and creepy. And I got chills there when I read it the first time when it was written on the page. So, and I also wanted that scene to be shot quite early in the schedule because I wanted the studio to be able to see a self-contained piece of the film, like with a beginning, middle, and an end. And they can go, okay, we trust Jamie to do the movie. Because I was living in terror that it was my first film. I thought, look, they'll figure out, that I'm just a young guy who likes movies a lot, and maybe not up to. I didn't know. You have a lot of imposter syndrome at that point in your career. Like, am I really good enough to direct this movie over other established directors? But then I just kept, well, someone's got to start with something, and I'm really lucky to be starting with something this great, with this great material, with these great people. But I was kind of convinced that I might get fired and someone might be brought in to replace me. So I thought if I can shoot a chunk of the film that looks really good and show it to the studio, edited with music and the whole thing, I said, I'm not just looking at rushes. They'll be happy and they won't want to fire me. They never wanted to fire me. Fortunately, they did scare me one time. They said, Jamie, the head of the studio would like to speak to you. And I got on the phone. They said, Jamie, this is after the first couple of days of shooting. We don't feel you've been 100% honest with us. And I thought, oh God, what's the next comment that coming out of your mouth? They said, you sure you've never shot a movie before? Because these rushes look magnificent. I'm like, oh, don't do that to me. Thank you, but you have to do the whole system. No. It was lovely they said that, and I told James, my DP, I said, thank you so much. I think you just saved my career by making those first couple of days rushes look so lovely. He kept telling me, mate, you've got to, the first thing they see, it's got to be great, and he had me convinced. So I made sure those first couple of days rushes looked really, really good, and I'm really glad that we did that, and I'm glad the studio supported me. But it was very important that we shoot that sequence early because it's for a first-time director, you need to have a little bit of assurance from. And it was even showing the actors, like Jared and stuff, that like, hey, I can direct this movie. Here's a chunk of it. Here's the first 10 minutes or whatever. And everyone really liked that sequence. Even from the rough cut stage, it was obvious that it was working pretty well. Natasha was great. Brad was great. So yeah, I'm glad it has stood the test of time because I'm always been very proud of it. So.
There's been a definitely brilliant Mike. What basically? Oh, totally. Nope, didn't lose it. There we go. Thought I lost it. Almost lost it. Came back. So when exactly is Darkest Hour coming out?
So Darkest Hours Expanded Edition drops June 11th. And Peel Back and See is October 29th, if I remember correctly. So very excited for those.
Shelter of the Damned is already out there, so we know where that's at. Yeah,
Shelter for the Damned is available through Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Walmart, or directly through the publisher, Journal Stone. So, and a beautiful cover art by the great Trevor Henderson, who is one of my favorites.
Right.
Wow, he's an amazing artist.
It's really beautifully designed, and I love the new artwork.
There's the artwork for Darkest Hour, which looks gorgeous.
So that one's Mikio Murakami, who is also amazing. Yeah, he's so good.
But I got to say, I got to see a sneak peek of that before it popped out, and it was brilliant. And I was like, yeah, this suits it. This is perfect. And I love the fact that like after each of the stories, there's this little commentary where you basically kind of talk about the story, like the kind of the genesis or a little bit about it. And I love seeing that. I'm a huge fan of like short story. I love the short story format. It was the first thing that I fell in love with when it came to writing. And a lot of it came from when I was younger. I used to watch all those old Amicus films. And from there, I watched like, Boris Karloff's Thriller and stuff like that, and kind of that medium really stuck with me. So when I started reading, I read a lot of those, those short story books, those anthologies that they would put out, and certain things stuck with me. And speaking of which, like, you got a King style, like with some of the way some of the characters talk, is in that they talk naturalistic, and they don't talk like you're writing a character, and this is a character that's been written. They sound like real people, and I appreciate that. Now, question though, what is Pet? So is Pet Sematary, that was your first King novel? Was that your favorite King? Is that your go-to?
God, it's hard to pick just one. I think It is probably my favorite Stephen King novel. I just think it's one of the best American novels of like the late 20th. I think that's a masterpiece. And I wrote my undergraduate honors thesis on Stephen King's It, actually, which was later published in Thinking Horror Volume 2. I've thought a lot about that book, and I think it's kind of like King's thesis on the genre. I just love that book. But isn't it amazing?
Oh, I just remember the first time I read it. Couldn't wait to get home from school every day and just pick it up, and I'd just read it until I fell asleep. I used to love King's books like that. I was so excited every day. I remember loving The Dead Zone and Christine and
yes,
all of them. Just couldn't wait to get back and start reading those stories again. And I remember loving Night Shift, and I've got them all. Every one he published, I've bought them the week they come out. They're required reading for me. I just love this book so much. And it's hard to imagine the 80s without Stephen King, isn't it? I mean, it's just like, wow.
Yeah.
It was like a place there.
His shadow looms large. It really does.
Yeah. I mean, you can't imagine what it's like for another author. It's just he's just like this towering figure in the genre, the literary genre. It's amazing.
Yeah.
He sends no signs of slowing down, though. He's still publishing stuff, isn't he? He's still coming out with a lot of stuff, and he's more popular than ever to adapt into movies. It's like we're back in the 80s again, It's like was it that started the whole thing? But there's been a lot of King adaptations since that movie. What did you think of the movie? Actually, I thought it was a pretty good little piece of work. It's a monumental thing to take on, trying to tackle that book. I thought doing the first film about just the kids only was a really clever move, because the mini-series, obviously there's bouncing back and forwards between the two time zones. I thought the story really needed that. You needed that time spent on that side of the story, because it is so much of what the book's about. And you know that the de-age the children for the second film, the kids have grown up just enough that you can tell they weren't the same age. So they digitally were able to make them look like they did in the first film, and that blows my mind that's possible. Because I know it's easy to stick rain and things into a film. You draw a mat and you add the rain, but something like that is so complicated, and it's like it's not just taking a still and de-aging it. You've got to that performance has got to move frame by frame in whatever angle the director's chosen to shoot the scene. That kind of stuff blows my mind.
Like The Irishman, Scorsese's Irishman.
Yes, there you go.
Unbelievable.
It's that's kind of like black magic to me a little bit. Like I don't know quite how you pull that off. I can understand you do see explosions and all sorts of reading spaceships, all that stuff makes sense, and I've seen it done, and it's like, get that. But I don't understand how you do something like that. Where you even begin that process, whether some of it's automated or the whole thing's done by hand. I mean, it just blows my mind.
Agreed.
And it's just, I didn't realize it had been done until after I saw the film. I just kept thinking, I've just seen all these kids in the press junket promoting the second film. They look way older, and I thought, well, maybe Muschietti must have shot this stuff when he did the first movie and just had it put aside. I thought that's a strange, considering they might not have used the footage. Didn't dawn on me until later on, as I read in an interview, that actually been de-aged. I just thought all that footage had been shot way earlier or something. So
it's totally invisible. Yeah.
I digress, but that was just something. Every time I think about that sequel, I sort of marvel at that technology.
I thought the sequel actually had some of the most interesting visualization of cosmic horror I've seen in recent horror cinema, with the origin of it. That kind of
that was crazy.
I love that sequence. Yeah,
it was really great, and some really memorable images from that second movie too. I thought casting Bill Hader as the older Richie was a bit of not struck a genius. I mean, he was fabulous.
Yeah, yeah. No, it was really well cast, and James McAvoy, of course, is fantastic.
It's great. Yeah, you've got me in the mood to watch it again. I think that's what I might do this afternoon. Is throw it on.
Hader stole it for me in the second. I love Hader though, like from Barry, like which I thought was brilliant.
Right. Yeah, it was really, really fun. Love that.
Question though, here's the one for it. What do you think the clown design for the new It?
You mean the clown design as
for Pennywise?
From Pennywise. Well, he looks like a demented psychopath. I mean, he looks like, I don't know if I was a child that I'd be wanting to go anywhere near him.
Kind of what I was thinking about, actually. See, because I both love and am confused by the design. Because when you see like the miniseries, you see Tim Curry and he looks like a clown. He looks like a clown. So you can say, okay, I can see a kid going over and talking to this clown or whatever, taking the balloon. But when you see Skarsgård as like Pennywise, you're like, I wouldn't go near that. Like,
thanks,
I don't care how he dance. I wouldn't be going near there.
It's interesting they brought back the orange hair though, because in the novel, Pennywise has orange hair. But Tim Curry is amazing in the miniseries. I mean, that's brilliant. Oh yeah.
And
he's working with a limited budget too. It's always is the thing there. I think though, honestly, the films obviously are I'm gonna get some hate for it, are kind of superior to what was done initially, but it's a different medium too, so it's hard to really compare them against one another.
I have a soft spot.
Yeah, I've got them all together. I would definitely go back to the Tommy Lee Wallace version in the future. And Tim Curry is actually saw someone. Was it you, Mike, that showed me on Twitter? There's this young Tim Curry and a young Bill Skarsgård, and they look almost identical.
I don't know if I've seen this.
Oh yeah, I've seen that picture. They do look alike.
Yeah, this is uncanny. They've even got the same little the eyes. Oh, it's amazing. I got shivers when I saw that. I'm sure it was completely like a fluke. Then these two photographs just happened to look really similar, but it is kind of amazing. I like the Pennywise design. I mean, I think it's the most iconic horror character that's come along probably since Freddy Krueger.
It's the sequence in the first one when they're watching the film that creeped the hell out of me. That stuck with me.
Yeah. Well, my good friend Jason Ballantyne edited both those movies, so I'm super proud of him that he did that. He worked on Mad Max Fury Road and didn't get the credit for it. He got assistant editor or something like that, but he did close on a year or so work on that movie, and I always thought a grave injustice that he didn't. He
did a great job. That's a brilliant film. We watched that in theater and we were just like blown away.
Yeah,
what a masterpiece!
Amazing.
I've got some film buddies here that like to be. They can often be very negative about stuff. They asked me the other night what films did I like recently. I said I like Promising Young Woman and Nomad Land, and they were just like, oh, boring, whatever. And we were talking about something. What was you saying? The other movie. Anyway, they were very negative about Mad Max as well, and I just thought, wow, how could you not just love that movie for the masterpiece that it is? And I said, oh, there's too much speed ramping and this and that, and I'm like, man, it's one of the greatest action films of all time. Everyone else seems to understand that. My film buddies here are just like, no. All right. Yeah, wow. I'm much more forgiving of movies than they are. But I thought, I don't know how many times I've watched Mad Max Fury Road since I saw it 3 times in the cinema. And I've watched it a hell of a lot more times here at home too. It's wonderful. Although the 4K version, Aaron, just getting a bit nerdy at the moment, the 4K version, the explosions seem a little weird and funky. They're like a different color or something. And you look at the Blu-ray and they blend in much better with the film. There's something weird about the 4K version of Mad Max. Do you have that on 4K?
I got it on Blu-ray and 4K, but I'll be honest with you, sometimes I'll buy a bunch of 4Ks and I don't get around to them because I've already got the Blu-ray open. But I do have it here on 4K too.
You know what you think and what it looks like on your system, because it always looked a little bit strange. Anyway, I digress.
Would you ever do something like that? Would you ever do like a big, like a high octane action?
Ooh, good question.
If someone would let me, I'd love to go out and blow the hell out of some stuff in the desert.
Yeah.
I would look. I've always wanted to do an action movie. The opportunity hasn't presented itself really. I was offered the Stallone remake of Get Carter, which I didn't want to do at the time. But I'd love to do an action film. Really would. And I think I'd be good at action films. Actually, I'd be good at shooting an action film. And fingers crossed, one day we might get to do one. Probably not in Australia. I'll probably have to go to America for that. So once COVID.
Oh, really? Because there's so much brilliant action stuff done in Australia too, right?
Yeah, but just not on the budget. Like unless you're George Miller,
Right.
A lot of big action films in Australia that there's just not a lot of them. It's not a big genre here. He's about to do Furiosa, the prequel.
Yeah.
Australia.
I'm excited for that actually.
$350 million or something. It's like, wow.
Oh my god.
Wow. No, I could see your sensibility working really well within the action. I mean, even like Storm Warning draws a lot on action cinema, right? Especially in that.
Yeah. That was kind of fun to do that action at the end. That was all done on the stage, so everyone always laughed. We're the only people who did like a car chase sequence or a car stunt sequence on a sound stage. It was very silly, but yeah, we just had the car hit the hovercraft and all that stuff at the end was done in there. But it would have been nice. I really wanted them to drag the entire set down. I wanted them to just destroy Poppy's whole house, and it just wasn't going to be possible to do that practically.
Right.
But, I did want to end the film that way, so let's just have them drive the car through the whole thing. Anyway, wasn't to be.
Well, one day.
Yeah, one something to look forward to, my friend. So what else is going on in our chat here? I'm just seeing what else. Have we still got people listening to us? Wow, we've been going for 2 hours.
Yes. If you guys get tired anytime, you guys let me know. I'll be preaching of having you guys here. You know that. And you are all welcome anytime you want to come on.
Thanks so much, man.
Yeah, no, it's been so much fun, dude. We will definitely be back. There's no question about that.
Definitely.
As well. I want to see what you guys come up with next, and I know the people in here want to know exactly. There's things that are alluded that can't be talked about, but
yes,
eventually,
hopefully, not too much.
As Stephen King said in that trailer for Maximum Overdrive. Basically, remember that?
I do.
Scare the hell out of you.
Yeah.
That's what you got to do when you guys make a movie. When you do a trailer, don't be coked out of it like Stephen King was, though. Just because
I would love to team
we're
up
going
with
to
Mike
scare the hell.
the crap out of people. I think that's a great idea.
I got to channel my that's some energy. You've got to channel.
There you go, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, I'll rehearse that. For next time.
Do you know what Stephen King character you could play? I just thought about it when you said that. Jack Torrance. I could see that.
I would love to play. Yeah, I mean that's scary though because then you're going up against Nicholson and what was the name of the actor in the Mick Garris?
Steven Weber.
Amazing. I thought he was great. Yeah.
I'll be honest with you. I love Steven Weber's portrayal in in the TV version of
Me too.
of The Shining.
Good actor.
Yeah. It's a great adaptation too.
Yeah,
that's one role I would have loved to have played. Is I love Torrance, and I read through The Shining so many times. The silver cover, with the boys' face on it.
Right. Yeah.
And I read that so many times. I had it memorized at one point.
That's a great story. I love the 4K version of Kubrick's movie though that came out. Oh, it looks so good. I've never seen it look so nice.
I still need that. I don't have it yet. We got the 2001, which is brilliant, but we don't have The Shining yet.
Oh, I love 2001 as well. Yeah, all the Kubrick stuff. I mean, has Clockwork Orange come out on 4K yet? I'm not sure if
it is coming out. If it's not out, it's coming out soon, I think.
Okay.
Have they done Eyes Wide Shut? That's my favorite Kubrick film.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Not yet. I don't think. Not on 4K.
No. Oh, I love that.
It'll be brilliant to see.
Yeah.
I just need to watch Eyes Wide Shut again. I remember seeing it in the cinema, and it didn't go down so well with the people that I was with, but I was kind of intrigued by it. I need to give it another shot, and just because I know there's some amazing stuff in there. I remember that mask party sequence kind of stayed with me. I mean, that was classic.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was beautifully shot, and And didn't it end the marriage of Cruz and Kidman at the time?
That's the theory, yeah.
Out of Scientology.
Yeah, exactly.
That's two pretty big things to withstand in a marriage: Scientology and Stanley Kubrick at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah, what a wild film that is. I'd love to see that on like a good 4K restoration. That'd be
it'll happen.
A few years ago, they put all the Christopher Nolans on 4K, and now it's time to get all the Kubricks out. You got to get all the big like visual filmmakers out there.
Yeah, that's right. Well, they're all Warner Brothers too, so they own all that stuff. But I'm sure they'll get onto it. It's only a matter of time.
There's a good question for you, actually, Jamie. For an aspiring filmmaker trying to get funding for a project, how would you stand out?
You've got to show them something. That's always been the case. I think that's why I was sort of driven to make my fake trailer for I Know What You Did Last Summer. I had a student film which people liked, but a student film is not really enough to kind of convince someone that you're up for another job. And they don't really have any understanding of how you might work in a different context. So I thought if I could show the producer of I Know What You Did Last Summer what I would do with that script, then that would help me. And that was a really. I was lucky that I actually had my hand on the script, though. You know, through a manager, I got to read the script. You know, a lot of filmmakers aren't in that position. What I would say is they need to see evidence of your work. You need to be able to tell a story really effectively and visually. Show them what you can do as a director. Pick material that is within your budget, within your means to pull off, and make something. Just show them what you can do, and there's really no other way. You know, you've got to be good in a meeting. You've got to, when they meet you, but you've got to be able to convince them of your vision. But to get to that stage, you're going to need to have something under your belt to show them, and that's what I'd recommend doing. Make stuff. Get comfortable working with actors. Make short films.
Practice your pitch.
Yeah,
always practice your pitch.
Yeah. Yeah, good stuff. Where are we? Yes. Well, I don't know what else to suggest for the aspiring filmmaker.
No, but that's fantastic advice there when it comes to that. you know, as a guy that like started out there and basically they saw your short film, you did the trailer, you almost got him on I Know What You Did Last Summer, ended up not getting that, but ended up getting, in my opinion, I love I Know What You Did Last Summer, but the superior of the two films. And that's that's my thoughts on it. And going from there, from your output, you've been scoring, man. You've been like hitting it, and you're going with Mike, who's been doing solid all the way through. So this is a good combination. This is like a chocolate and peanut butter type of thing.
Yeah, I think we're going to work really well together because we just, like I said, our creative collaborations have been very smooth and easy and fun, and that's what it's all about. It's if we can gel together. If at 3 a.m. I can get an idea and I can be texting it over to Mike, and it's still at 4:30 the same morning, we're still talking about that idea. There's something of value there, and we were getting excited about it. Stuff, you'd come up with something great, and it would inspire something that I could sort of contribute to that, and it was really fun. It was a great collaboration, and we both have deep love of genre cinema as well as genre literature, so it's easy to kind of draw references and frame of reference stuff super easy with Mike. So I know we're going to have some really fun times collaborating on some stuff, and I'm really looking forward to pitching some of our stuff soon. So yeah, it's going to be cool.
So get ahead of this, guys. If you want to know exactly, want to get a feel of what's coming up, Mike's books are right there. Definitely start checking them out now, because this is a way to get ahead of the game and know exactly get an idea what's coming from these guys, from both these twisted minds.
That's a very good idea.
Yeah,
because we got your book coming in June as well. We got coming in October. We got Storm Warning along with Crawl Space coming in maybe July or August, right? For the soundtrack for that. Howlin' Wolf Records, and hopefully next year we'll have the long weekend as well.
Yeah, it'd be fun.
And I'd love to see the concept one. I think that would be a fantastic idea.
Oh, I've already got some great ideas. I've already got some
that.
tracks actually that I'd use on that album. So yeah, it'll be really nice to be able to put some of that music out. I think the music's gotten better since the Storm Warning days. I'm really proud of Storm Warning, but I think I've done stuff in the years since that I'm even more proud of. So I'd love to see that get released. It would be really nice.
Channel your inner carpenter and get those things going, man.
Exactly.
I want those
Craig,
CDs.
just pick up your book, Mike.
Oh, wow. Thank you, Craig.
I'm missing a live chat here. So have we answered everyone's questions?
Yeah, anyone else?
I think we got. Let's see. Is there any last questions before I let these guys go? I've kept them here without a bathroom break for almost 2.5 hours now, guys. So if you have any good questions, this is the time before we end it there.
The full bladdered answers are always the best. You've got that.
That's right.
There you go.
For the price of a combo at Wendy's, you can get a damn book, says Craig. Thanks so much for the support, Craig.
Yes.
There's a story in Darkest Hours called Hair. I hope that is as delicious to you as a Wendy's combo. As palatable.
That still haunts me, man. That still haunts me. I love that story.
It's a fun one to do at readings. Make everybody gag.
I can see that.
Yeah.
I would have fun with that.
Yeah.
I guess the next thing after this is, I don't know if this has been talked about with your publishing company or anything like that, is because there's word of audiobooks as well now. So has that been anything that's been talked about, or maybe you can't talk about it, but audio adaptions of any of your books?
It's something I've talked vaguely with my agent about. I don't know what the process is like for that. I guess something that's exciting though is there's a publisher affiliated with Journal Stone who's releasing the Spanish translation of Shelter for the Damned in 2022. So I'm really hyped for that. But in terms of audiobooks, I actually don't know what's in the works on that front, but I'd love to see that happen.
Yeah, I'd imagine that would translate wonderfully to audio with a bit of sound design work and stuff. Brilliant. You could do a great job of that. It's actually a really cool idea.
Yeah.
A few good audio books, actually. I was War of the Worlds. There was one produced by the guy who did that album, actually, with Michael Sheen reading the role. That was really fun as an audio book. So I've only heard a few of them, but they're really quite a good way, especially in the car. You want to be different. They're really fun. I know there's supposed to be a really good one of The Mist out there. Yeah, I got to check it out.
There was one when I was in college. It was on tape, and it was a full cast of The Mist, and it had the music, and it was so good. It creeped me out so much.
That's a great novella.
I love that one, and I love the Darabont film too.
Yeah, it's great.
That ending is what a gut punch.
Yeah, the bleakest ending in the history of movies. My God.
Yeah. Apparently, even threw King for a loop with that. King was like, "All right, that's the ending."
That's dark. Yeah. That's a ripper.
And I'll be honest, I'm probably the only people. I actually liked the TV series that they did. Only lasted a season. I was really wanted to know where it would go because it went in a very different thing than the King story, right?
Four of them, and I never kept going with it, but I should try and persevere to the end and see how it goes. I was enjoying it a bit actually. It's just so much TV to catch up on. List is everybody I meet's got their own favorite show. It's you haven't got time.
It's insane. You can't keep up with everything. Yeah. As long as you've seen 30 Kinds, which has been fantastic.
I've got to watch that one too. That's right. Yeah, right. It's the other one. Yeah, I'm way behind on my TV. I really am.
Me too.
We're living in a very good era for television.
It's another golden era for TV right now, and stuff that's coming out there. And I think for us, it started with there's HBO did a bunch of stuff. We had stuff that HBO did from Game of Thrones back to Oz. Right. We had the Masters of Horror. We did 2 seasons of that which were fantastic, utterly amazing. Brilliant, letting literally the Masters of Horror be shown. And I collected those when you get them, Do you ever see the DVDs with the cards with the cards inside?
Yeah.
And just to see stuff go from there. And like there's so many services and stuff out there now. Like I'm a physical collector, media collector, but I do appreciate like what streaming does. For me, streaming doesn't take the place of physical media collections. For me, streaming takes the place of cable. And it opens up a lot of doors for like people, a lot of creative outlets for people to create, whether it's film or a TV show, and it lets you. And one of the neat things, like people rag on Disney, like a lot, obviously, that I love about the Disney Plus, like the shows that they've done for Marvel, is every episode is as long as that episode needs to be. Not every episode is 30 minutes. Not every episode is an hour. Every episode is as long as that episode needs to be. And that's a brilliant little new thing that they've done. That because before everything was okay. It's got to fit in 22 minutes. It's got to fit in. With streaming shows, you don't need to.
Black Mirror can be whatever they want it to be every episode. Exactly. Right. Format. It's really cool.
It's so genius because basically you tell the story that you want to tell, and if that story is told in 30 minutes, that's fantastic. If it takes you 45 minutes to tell the story, but you tell the story and there's no compromise on your vision, and I love that. Black Mirror is a beautiful example of that because that's such a fantastically twisted, wonderful show.
And it's wonderful that we've got all these these streaming services financing these shows too, because we desperately need people to produce content. In Hollywood, they're the ones that keep everyone employed. And Netflix really changed the whole game. And it's just the landscape looks very, very different now than it used to look, 20 odd years ago. The system's completely changed. So they're huge players in the industry now, Netflix, and they do sometimes release physical media editions of some of those shows. So it's not always we're not always missing out. I just don't want to live in a world where we don't have physical media anymore. I just
exactly.
I want to have that option always, and I love my commentaries and all the other stuff that comes with these special editions, and I just don't want to have to give that stuff up. So I'm hoping that we're not going to have to for a very long time.
No, I think it's still around. We got at least another good 10, 15, 20 years or so before, and by that time it'll be cycled in as kind of a retro thing. Like, records were gone they thought records were gone, but now there's. But right now it's a beautiful time. People think like, physical media must be going away. I don't see so much at my Walmart. Don't see so much at my store. But that's because there's other places to buy it now. You can buy directly from the companies themselves.
Yeah. You
go online. There's a big sale. Vinegar Syndrome is having their big, halfway to Black Friday sale, and I'm a big geek. You guys know I'm a big geek for that.
Yeah.
And it's just the fact that you can go on, you can support them by buying directly from the companies and buy what you like. Because here's the thing: when you buy something that you enjoy, and a bunch of people buy that same thing, you'll see more of what you enjoy.
Right. That's right.
If you wait and you say, okay, I'll get that down the road. Maybe I'll get that, and then and then all of a sudden that title's gone, or it's not being processed anymore, but not being produced. They're less likely to make the next the one that you want. So they're doing a TV box set called Televised Tears, and I showed you some people were complaining about the artwork, that all the stuff. People, it's the internet. People complain, so it happens.
Really? No.
I know, it's shocking. But the thing is that 3 television horror films coming out in a set, one from the 70s, one from the 80s, one from the 90s. I think that's a brilliant concept. And TV horror has them in mind. There's a thing that has TV horror has them in mind, right? Those 90s kind of softcore thrillers, the Night Eyes, that type of stuff. They have them in mind correctly. Cynthia Rothrock films still have not been mined correctly when it comes to things like just that stands out that should be on my shelf, but it's not right now.
Right.
Is there anything that stands out for you guys, like you think, like as collectors, that you would love to have on your shelf that's not available, or something that you'd really like to see?
Like a genre of things, or just a particular movie? Because I really want Alone in the Dark from 1982 as a movie. I just want that. But no, I would definitely love to see some more television horror getting its. I just got Killdozer the other day, and I've got a few little Kelly horror things smattered around the place. But there is some really good work that was done for television, and I would like to see a little bit more of that preserved. So most of the things that I wish for are just things that I want to come to Blu-ray that haven't made it to Blu-ray yet. But there was a lot of good stuff released on DVD, and that we were pretty well catered for in that format. I just want to see a few more things make it all the way to blue or 4K. That's that's where I'm at.
I would say Storm Warning and Long Weekend for real.
The checks in the mail,
Mike. with good cover art for Long Weekend.
Yeah, exactly. No, seriously, yeah. Come on. And then another one for me is I have it on VHS, but Greg Araki's film Nowhere. I don't think that's ever been released on DVD or Blu-ray. The guy who did Mysterious Skin and
all right, you know who he is,
yeah. I'd love to get that. Yeah, that one I've always thought I'd love to have that on Blu-ray. So
yeah, I wonder why his stuff hasn't been well transferred to that format. It's just strange, isn't it?
Yeah,
some directors just been a bit overlooked, but isn't it surprising some of the releases that we're getting, Aaron? You'd think like, wow, I'd never thought, Don't Go in the Woods would make it to Blu-ray before Launch the Park, or some of this stuff's just like there's a nice Bit on Your Grave box set from Ronin Films that's just like so deluxe and lovely. It's like
wow.
Yeah, it's a good time to collect exploitation in genre cinema. It is a good time. A lot of stuff out there.
No, it's been like for me, like it's a golden time to collect. Movies that I never thought would come out and get one. Coscarelli's Beastmaster.
Yeah,
finally got that amazing edition. Everybody should have that in their collection. It's just gorgeous. It's a 4K. The
beautiful
box set is it's insane.
Can't go wrong with Coscarelli. Oh, beautiful! Wow.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. It's a ripper, and it's great packaging. All the artwork, all the different posters in there. It's crazy.
Oh, that's beautiful.
It's insanely gorgeous.
Wow.
And Six String Samurai's next one being done like that.
Yeah, I'm struggling with the camera here. Yeah, so it's beautiful. I love that edition. Great transfer. It's nice to have it in 4K.
I'm excited, and in exploitation way, I'm excited that Severin Films are putting a Black Emmanuel box set later on this year.
Oh, I picked that up.
Always rely on Severin for the gold.
So they were like, so it's taking longer than we expected because it's going to have every Black Emmanuel film in the set and some offshoots as well. I'm like, I'm so there for that.
All half measures with David Gregory. He's a good man, isn't he? He gets it done.
Oh, they put out some different stuff, man, that like other people wouldn't put out.
Oh, for sure. Didn't they just do the Andy Milligan set?
Yeah. I didn't grab that one.
No, neither have I yet, but I'm sort of tempted.
I go back and forth. Like there's sometimes, like I've said this, and I said this on my channel a million times, as a director, Andy Milligan is a hell of a writer. And that tends to be the thing. He was a writer, because obviously he was a playwright first, and not exactly the nicest guy. Like unfortunately we hear from all too often when it comes to certain creative minds. But there's times when I see that there's stuff like Flesh Pot on 42nd Street. And I'm like, yes, I love the dialogue in that film. I love certain, some of the characters. And then there's The Rats Are Coming, the Werewolves Are Here. And I'm like, that was a painful watch. And to this day, it's a title that makes no sense because if there's werewolves here, I don't think I'm going to care about some rats coming later on down the road.
That's funny.
But yeah, I go back and forth on Milligan. I don't know whether I want it for historical sake because I know they're good to study. But yeah, not sure.
Right. As an educational exercise.
Yes, exactly.
Like the Adamson set, I love because there was so much different stuff. You put one disc on. If you're not big on that one, then it's another genre. If it's Andy Milligan, there's a hunchback in this one, and is that another hunchback? Are we getting another hunchback in this film? Why, yes, we are.
There's supposed to be a really good book on Milligan. I haven't read it yet, but I've got to pick it up. I hear it's really, really well done. The Gardner one or something? Is it? Yeah, it's supposed to be.
Fab
great.
Press put it out.
Is it Fab?
Yeah.
Oh, right.
So
I got to
it's
get
going to be it's got a slip cover and everything with slipcase and everything with it. It's
Right.
gorgeous. Now, if you bought the Milligan set in America and you were in America, then you could have got the book with the set.
Oh, I see. Right.
But unfortunately, here in Canada, internationally, they wouldn't ship it side. So,
Oh, okay. Right.
and that might be the real reason I didn't buy the set initially.
Right. Well, we should probably wrap it up soon.
Yeah.
I've got to go and grab from my son from his mate's house.
So that's it. Get you in trouble now, right? That's what we want to do.
What time is it now?
Because we've been there 2 hours and 40 minutes. It's been a marathon, guys.
40 minutes. That's a good innings. I reckon we've done pretty well.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I want to thank both of you guys for coming on here so much, and thanking everybody for coming in here. And just one, hit the like button. I forgot to say the YouTube stuff because when Jamie and Mike, when they get talking, I just like to sit back and listen because it's fantastic. Thank you guys so much. Check out the Jamie's films. Check out the CD that's coming out from Howling Wolf Records. Check out Howling Wolf Records anyway. They do amazing stuff.
Yes,
Mike's books. Make sure you grab them. Make sure you grab the one in June. It's fantastic. I can tell you ahead of time, it is a fantastic read. And check out Children of the Damned. You can get that one right now, and I know a couple people already have. Much appreciated.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you for having us, Aaron, and always
it's been a
good to
pleasure
chat with
being
you,
on the
JP.
channel, Aaron, and I'm looking forward to the Urban Legend thing tomorrow. So might see some for that. That'll be fun.
Exactly. I'm hoping to get into to see that as well. So check out over on Piswell's channel. Piswell, great guy, great YouTuber. Make sure you check it out because they're doing the live commentary with a bunch of the cast members. I'm so jealous. I never thought of that idea. But he's an amazing guy. Tara Reid's there, Michael Rosenbaum. Jamie, you should go on Inside of You. You should have mentioned that too.
Oh yeah.
Do his podcast.
Yeah, it would be fun actually. It'd be fun. He's a good old mate of mine. I love Rosie.
And guys, I guess till next time. This is a call to cinema. You guys anything you want to say before we go?
I just had a great time with you, Aaron, and I look forward to coming back many times in the future with you and with Mike, and I'm sure we'll have plenty more to talk about on our next catch up, which I'm sure won't be far away.
Exactly. Yeah. Thank you both so much, guys. It's a pleasure and an honor.
It's an open invitation, guys. It's as always, it's incredible.
Thanks, man. You're a good man.
Have a great evening, guys, and thanks for joining the Call to Cinema.
Good to see you guys. Have a good night.